Yo, hello, everybody. Hi, horses. Uh, I'm glad I made it too. Do I sound like I'm peaking? Does the audio sound okay? Wait, does this sound better? Yeah, I think. Hmm. What are the chances? 100%. If I turn this up, does that. Test, 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 test. Does that sound okay, guys? Might be yelling here. You know how this shit gets. Oh, thank you, Mr. Joe. All right. I'm out of focus. Oh, yeah. That's a bullseye. Panel. Yeah, this might be my last panel for a while. I'm not sure. It's not really my element, you know. For fun, I play video games for fun, honestly. The Last of Us factions, Smash. I've been playing some Halo. Yeah, exactly. Panels aren't personal. This one's a little smaller, so I think there's only 5 people, so it shouldn't be as bad. But you know, I guess we'll find out. StreamYard video, Discord audio. Okay. So StreamYard. You know what? I should open a incognito window. Let's do this the right way. Wait, does that work? Oh, yeah, allow. Allow. Mic. High definition. Audio is good. Okay, and then can I enter studio?
Wait.
Okay. Let's get this.
Oh my god.
StreamYard. Yes. Put him down here now. My friends in real life, no, they call me Max. Every once in a while, they'll call me Miss. If we're playing video games, sometimes. Usually, no, they don't. They call me Max. Well, they're talking. I gotta join the Discord to be able to hear them. Okay, Discord. Okay, I joined the waiting room.
Peacemaker show is really
Hello.
good. DC
I haven't
is
seen it yet.
competing. DC is coming back. It's really, really good.
I actually would like to check that one out. I definitely have not seen it. It looks like it could be pretty good.
Sam Hyde. Yeah, I want to talk to Sam Hyde. Do I love black people? Yeah, I love black people. Obviously, I'm about to prove it right now. All right. All right. I'm gonna start talking to them.
On YouTube or something, like a couple days before the show was set to come out,
Uh-huh.
and it just seems like they're like all dancing and shit, right?
Yeah, the intro is really good.
Very not good. That's bad.
No,
Oh,
it's
sounds
Like
hilarious.
super try hard weird shit. I don't know. It just makes me feel like it feels like what
No, I've never tried a
corporate
psychedelic.
overlords thought would be like cool and edgy or something.
No,
It just feels really gross.
No, I mean it's the intro is over the top, but that's like like I said, it is super intentional. But the show itself is like, pretty chill. It's basically, I don't know, it feels Deadpool-esque. I mean, well, I guess it feels like the Suicide Squad. It feels like it's the same sort of comedy that the movies use, which I think the movies.
Deadpool-esque.
Hey, Dooby, where's the
It's a
frog?
good thing, I think.
Where's the frog?
Yeah,
buddy.
Superhero movies shouldn't take themselves too seriously, I feel like.
The frog will be here soon.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
just putting on my makeup. Give me 1 second.
Okay. Get your tiara on and everything.
But
Okay.
yeah, I can't think. I mean, yeah, that's really good. I'm trying to think of anything besides that thing.
I've just seen, in terms of movies, Spider-Man, and the Marvel movies is what I've gone out to. There's a whole bunch of old movies. Like I noticed on Hulu, like just before I came on here, that Parasite was there. I still haven't seen that movie.
Really?
Yeah.
Korean film.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's a great movie. It's
It is.
really excellent.
I think it was over. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's really good, but it's also like it was. I think people still somehow figured out a way to overhype it. Don't get me wrong.
Maybe.
It's an excellent movie, but like because it's an excellent movie, and I feel like people. I don't know. I was expecting it to be the greatest movie I've ever seen in my life, and I'm like, no, it was just really, really well made.
It's solid. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think people are also eager to show like how worldly and cultured they are, being like, yeah, I watched an amazing Korean film, but
Yeah, it was subtitled. Like, it's
Right.
like non-anime fans watching subtitles makes them feel better about themselves.
But yeah, I thought it was solid. I brought a guy to like see it.
All right, I'm gonna talk to the chat because I don't want to talk about Parasite. I love your music. Thank you. Do you have any main inspirations other than Eminem? I'd say Prince. Prince is a big one. I'm a big Prince fan. Yeah. Uh-oh. What's wrong? Well, tell me about Joe Lewis. What do I need to know here? Bad Faith? Insufferable? Do I like Frank Zappa? I think so. I have not listened to a lot of him, but I think so. I've had people like recommend me Frank Zappa like for my entire life. Do I collect vinyl? No. I have one vinyl record. It's a Simon and Garfunkel record. Bad Faith, huh? Psychedelics scares me. Psychedelics scare me, yeah. They interest me, but they freak me out. I could never do that. All right. They're going.
right? And we're actually starting on time. It's unfucking believable. But anyway, if you're watching this on YouTube, please like, comment, and
You know what? I just got my CDs of my own album. They just came, so I'm gonna be starting to ship those out, and I'm gonna I'll show you guys how they came out. Not today though. Okay, we're starting.
chat here. We'd love to have you. Okay, I have a group of amazing guests. I'm very happy to have them. New faces, love to see it. So I'm going to introduce them, and we'll get started. All right, first we'll start with my man MVP. We call him Joe Lewis. Joe Lewis, thanks for being around. How are you doing today, my friend?
Yeah, I'm doing well. This was the first Saturday in a while where I felt like I got some stuff done. So that was kind of nice. But yeah, for those who may not know who I am, I'm Joe Lewis. I cover educational politics on Twitch, and if that's something that might interest you and you're like the 1% of the 1% that finds that kind of interesting, you can find me at twitch.tv/Joe Lewis, the O being 0, and the same is on my Twitter. It's the same exact handles. But yeah, glad to be here. Hope everyone's doing well, and it's a good topic, so I'm kind of excited.
Hey, thanks so much. All right. Next we'll go to Black American Made. Look, right. I like having Black American Made on, right? I, as the number One Piece fan out there, right? I like, helping like my juniors, right? My lessers here. Like I gotta bring you up to my level, right? So like when I come here, I give you an education, I school you, right? And it's for your own good. And so that's why I let you on my panels every time. How you doing?
I respect it. I want to be just like you when I grow up. that's the goal. Every day is a little bit at a time. But no, I'm doing really good. Yeah, like I get excited every time he has me up to do a panel. So I'm super excited to be here. I've a couple people, April and Mr. Girl, I've never haven't been acquainted with, so this is my first time seeing y'all. And yeah, it should be overall pretty fun. Y'all know my stuff. It's literally my name, Black American Made, on mostly YouTube, but also on Twitch. Follow me. Just do it.
Thank you. All right. Next, we have Mr. Girl. Not new to the stream, but new to this particular show. Mr. Girl, thank you for coming back.
Thanks for having me
here. You are taking off out there. Like I feel like everything you do is fire nowadays. How does that feel? I wouldn't know.
It feels good. I don't want to fuck it up, so I get nervous. I talked to Richard Spencer last night, so that was. I think I handled it well, but I was afraid I would. I was afraid I'd screw
Be
my
a white
career
nationalist
up.
apologist.
Yeah, basically. I mean, I have like some Jew insurance, like on my face, but still, it would not be good to basically allow him to use me as like a mouthpiece for his views. And he's very smart. He's very, very, very smart. So, yeah. I'm nervous. That's how I feel. I feel excited. I feel smug. I feel proud. I feel happy, and I feel scared. I hate myself. I feel bad, and I feel angry.
Okay. Well, the full gamut of emotions.
There's a lot going on. It's a very emotional time.
I bet it is. But Mr. Girl, I'm glad you stopped by, spent a little time with us. I don't think there's too much to be scared of here, especially since this is less of a like.
I don't know. My chat's warning me about Joe Lewis.
Oh, well, man.
Yeah.
They've also warned me about Joe Lewis.
Yeah. They said
Apparently
he's
you have a reputation.
They said he's a bad
You got
faith
nothing to
arguer.
worry about. As
They
long as
said
you're not a fence sitter or a right winger, you'll be fine.
They said that you're bad faith and that you're gonna try to make me seem bad faith. So I don't know what to believe. I don't know who to believe.
We'll see in like 3 hours then, yeah?
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Okay. Well, that's it. Next, we have a brand new face, right? April, thank you for coming through. It was really nice. A mutual individual, a friend, put us in contact. I'm very happy they did. Right? You seemed like you're also making the rounds. People want to be talking to you, so I want to be talking to you because like I like bandwagons. So, April, how are you doing?
Doing great. I think that I'm in a similar position to Mr. Girl to a lesser extent. Destiny's community just likes me, so I leech off of him for viewers, and they're super nice. So I've just been dipping my toe a little bit into politics, having a good time, trying to represent, maybe dissident or strange, politics you don't see every day, and maybe learn something new, talk to people, listen to their ideas. So yeah, good stuff.
Well, thank you so much. I'm glad that you're having a good time, and I know that Destiny orbiting lifestyle. I get that, man. It's real.
Yep.
Okay.
Now that he's back from his trip, I just know my viewers are gonna plummet.
You'll be fine, I'm sure. Everyone, please check out April. And last but absolutely not least, we have our Dark Lord and Savior. Yes, his name is Dooby. He's back with us once again. Dooby, one of my favorite people to talk to. Dooby, how are you feeling today?
I'm doing very well. Very excited to be here with lots of nice people, and yeah, I'm Dooby. Thanks for having me.
All right, let's get cracking.
Oh wait, 1 second. All the people in Mr. Horse's chat or Mr. Girl's chat,
Mr.
yeah, Mr. Horse, that's your name now. All those
Okay.
people telling him to mount me, right? That's not cool. Okay, like that's kind of rapey, a little weird. And as you can see by my rock, I've got pretty good mounting strats. Now, I don't know if you can do it.
It's only rapey if you say
you're
no.
asking him to bite off a piece of something he can't handle. So just be careful.
Wow.
Okay, great. So, moving on. The topic. In the world of social media, a lot of irresponsible communication occurs. This seems especially true when it comes to conservative media. Oftentimes, people who know better flirt with conspiracy theories like QAnon. This can be done for profit or simple acceptance, but the results are the same. It spreads a destructive ideology. Are we responsible for the harm and potential harm done to the world by the things we say? If some speech can be demonstrated to lead to bad outcomes, should we stifle someone's ability to speak it? Or is the fact that someone has the ability to speak the most important overriding concern? So, yeah, as you guys know, right, we live in a moment of conspiracy theories, of just like extremely destructive ideologies in general, right? Like far right ideologies that are spreading. Oh, and people who may not be a part of those, right, still like advertise those things. And I think that there is room for a discussion as to is it most important that they be able to simply speak, right? That their First Amendment rights are unimpeached, or that we take a second look at these things and say that some speech is just too dangerous. So we'll go around and we'll discuss. All right, so opening statements first. Start with my man Joe Lewis.
Yeah, to address the question directly, are we responsible for the harm or potential harm done to the world by things we say? Yes. But I'm not really concerned about that because I think that's like the easier thing to approach. The more challenging thing, I think, is the second question that you posit. So I believe that we should try our best to alleviate the circumstances that lead to bad outcomes. And I also feel that all outcomes are possible, specifically with political speech. And I think that organizations and people are just trying to just utilize, maintain, and gain different types of power. And maybe we can have I have a definition for power, and maybe if we need to, we can like work out on that idea, because there's a lot of steps within that. And maybe we'll have some time to hash that out. But again, generally, I think that we should be prioritizing the circumstances that lead to bad outcomes, as opposed to trying to overtly address bad outcomes. I think that, to make this a bit more direct, if people are kind of getting lost, is that I think that when you directly address bad outcomes and try to prevent bad outcomes, you're going to just inherently inhibit people's individual liberties and group autonomy. And I don't think it's going to help in the long term. So I think alleviating circumstances, excuse me, is something we should prioritize.
Thanks so much. Black American made.
Yeah, I think that I have no idea everybody in here's political leanings necessarily, but like from a basic standpoint, we most people understand that free speech is in relation to like government, like specifically government impact, like the concept of being imprisoned. And I think I think the way we currently handle speech is probably pretty close to my version of ideal. I believe that internet spaces and websites should be disincentivized, like from a profit perspective, to allow like any type of any type of speech that's like demonstrably unpopular and harmful, and considered to the detriment of society. I think the best thing we can do is what Prime does is get people together and sort of push back against this type of speech, because I don't think there's a useful model we can look at of truly controlling or limiting people's speech, even the ones we consider super harmful. And like I said, the more particulars of that we can go into in the open.
Mr. Girl, please.
Well, I think that restricting speech is a bad outcome, so it doesn't make that much sense to me to do that to prevent other bad outcomes. So I have a couple like kind of lenses through which to view this. So one is a lot of the stuff we say is promoted by social media algorithms, and those algorithms promote things that feel good or feel bad, get people to click on them, and that's usually not the truth. So I think that's partly their fault. On an individual level, if you're saying things you know aren't true, probably shouldn't say them. So then that's like Joe Rogan is another lens where it's like he'll have people on and he'll entertain ideas where he doesn't seem to really know what he's talking about, but then he'll say, I kind of don't know what I'm talking about, so it's okay. But I think he ends up spreading a lot of misinformation that way. And then I guess you're asking, like, should we allow that? I don't know who you mean by we. If you mean social media companies, I think they're actively promoting misinformation, so they should stop. I don't think the government should step in, though, if that's what you're getting at. I think we got to have free speech. That's it.
Thanks so much. April.
Yeah, so I'm a fan of free speech, but I agree with sort of what Mr. Girl is talking about. I think these social media platforms, they're optimized to keep you clicking, keep you engaging over and over. They're not optimized to promote the speech that most benefits society. And so there's a sort of toxic, destructive effect in the kinds of speech that people pursue is oftentimes not the most truthful. So while I don't necessarily think we should regulate free speech or ban people from the platforms for, spreading, this position or that position necessarily, I think what we do need to do is make sure we're mandating like a neutral way for these ideas to be interacting with each other. So ideas should be put against one another. And we see that when we ban certain kinds of speech, what ends up happening is it goes somewhere like Telegram, and the community gets more concentrated and less receptive to outside influence or towards deprogramming from other more, compelling ideas. So what I think we need to do is we need to adequately platform these ideas, or platform bad ideas versus good ideas. And the way you do that is by putting them in a neutral environment where both can be expressed honestly against each other. And so my goal would not necessarily be ending free speech or banning ideas necessarily, but really trying to create that like neutral environment where the goal is not necessarily keeping people clicking, but optimizing for truth. So that's my position.
Thank you. Dooby.
So I think I don't know. So I'm very like in favor of free speech that allows it where in such that it means like you can discuss ideas, right? Because I think it's extremely important to get people to discuss the reasons they believe the things that they think they believe.
With the
Right?
shit you
That's
say, you need it.
well, okay. However, right? I think that I think there's a line, right? And I'm not really sure where that line is. I was on a panel, one of your panels, Prime, the other day, with this ANCAP dude, right? Who said that he would allow people to like intentionally, knowingly, like spread misinformation, right, about COVID and COVID vaccines. And he thinks that there is no line basically, and if people want to say it, they should be able to say it, no matter the consequence to everybody else. And even if we can demonstrate that their speech, their expressions of whatever are leading to like demonstrable like harm in the real world and leading to people dying and shit. Well, even still, people want to say this thing, and that's like some divine right that they have. So we just can't stop it. I don't think that's realistic. I don't think that's like reasonable. So I think there is a line somewhere. Though I'm very sympathetic to all the arguments about letting people discuss their ideas, and and if you try to shut people down, they kind of get into like echo chambers where they just kind of harden against all the opposing opinions, and it's much more difficult to reach them. So I'm
No,
very sympathetic
I
to
knew I
those
was
arguments,
muted. I
but
was just
I,
interrupting.
I don't think the line is just like not there. I think there is a line somewhere, and I think that once we find the line, we do need to enforce it.
Open to the panel.
I mean, I don't know, because I'm like super small as a content creator. Like, where, how powerful are the algorithms that we always discuss when you come to this?
Extremely.
Incredibly powerful.
They're your audience. Your audience is not people. For the most part, your audience is a robot. And then the robot decides if the robot takes a sample of what some of the people think of you and analyzes their behavior and then decides how many more people it wants to show you to. But yeah, so like your core audience is like the kindling, and the robot is like pours the gasoline on it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, like modern social media cannot survive without an algorithmic way of doing it.
I don't know. The reason I ask is, well, not. I mean, yeah, I guess that's the answer to that question. I think the next part of that is, it seems that, I don't know, like there a lot of misinformation out there, especially when we deal with like our media. Absolutely, but I feel like I feel like part of that is the media being representative of, like, I think it's like a circular wave. Like, real people do believe the things that we're seeing in terms of like our media, and the media is probably exasperating that and
Wait,
creating
doesn't your Twitter profile say something about like a 9/11 conspiracy theory?
It's my Twitter profile is the first the opening scene to a show called Boondocks. If you haven't seen the show, you hadn't get it, but if you have seen the show, you do get it.
I don't get it.
But yeah, it's not like an actual conspiracy theory.
Oh, so you don't think that Bush did 9/11 or anything?
No, it's all part of the show.
It's a black thing. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, basically.
Well, maybe you guys can teach me.
I think that the interesting question is in regards to speech that is like, wholly destructive. I think we can agree that, like, if you're an objective observer, you could observe that some speech is objectively negative and degrades the conversation for all sides. So speech that is just like blatant misinformation, I think degrades the conversation for all sides. But It's one thing to acknowledge that in a perfect world, we could identify that kind of speech. And another thing to acknowledge that in the real world, the kind of fact checkers that we often have as a neutral arbiter are not so neutral. And a lot of times we see, like, in the case of like Snopes, they tend to lean a little bit left. And so when it comes down to something that is a little bit borderline, like maybe it's slightly true, maybe it's slightly untrue, these sorts of like fact checkers, if they have a liberal bias, are going to slightly lean towards benefiting the progressive side. And so I think anytime we start introducing like quote unquote neutral arbiters that are going to limit or regulate speech, we have to be very careful about making sure that they're actually neutral. And I might even go so far to say that, like, without enormous effort, these neutral arbiters are probably not going to be so neutral, and they're going to cause some sort of like degenerative effects in the conversation themselves. So the question then, I think, is if we accept that humans are imperfect and that neutral arbiters are very hard to do without a great deal of experience or resources, is it then better to accept the world where there's some misinformation, but maybe we temper the way that people have conversations, or make sure that there are some other checks and balances between people spreading information, or the world where we are blocking information, and maybe blocking that information is leaning slightly to one partisan side or another?
I believe this responsibility, and I put a lot of the responsibility to the education system. I don't think we do a good job as educators teaching students and guiding students through the differences of misinformation and disinformation, because there is a difference between the two. And then because of this lack of exposure to how to navigate these things, propaganda then in turn becomes very powerful, not only to like push political power or just push social power. And with that being said, I think that's like where you got to start. Like there has to be a much more conscious and dedicated effort in exposing students to the differences between misinformation and disinformation. Really exploring what critical
I've never
thinking
heard of Boondocks.
actually is.
I've never heard of it. I have no idea what it is.
Not only expressing like how do we debunk information, like revealing false and inaccurate information what people say, but also how do we amend those things? How do we change information for the intent for it to be more accurate and clear? Because while we can say not every single individual is intentionally spewing disinformation, because I think disinformation has a clear intention, like explicitly intended to mislead, but there's very clearly misinformation, like people who in the quest of understanding more about phenomena just get some things that aren't necessarily there, and that's totally fine, and we encourage that. But by and large, when we have those pieces of inaccurate information in the quest of finding out more, we don't really do a good job in explaining to people like, okay, like there's misinformation in what you're saying, here's like some ways to approach that, here are ways that you can ask better questions when you're searching for things, better ways of doing research. That way hopefully you can get to a better understanding to the phenomena that you're trying to identify. And then again, if we're talking in photo content, like it's all just going to be used for propaganda at the end of the day. But if it's going to be used as propaganda at the end of the day, then we should be very, very not only keen to, but sensitive to misinformation and disinformation and being able to sniff it out when appropriate.
Dooby.
Yeah, so I think okay. I don't want to be this direct this early, but I'm going to do it. So
Do it.
what I'm kind of curious about is like so it seems like, Joe, you're acknowledging that people have some kind of a responsibility for the things they say and the damage that it can do to the world. So I can agree with that. But and misinformation is an easy one. But what about things that like encourage or perpetuate like racial animus toward other like racial groups? For example, the other day when you were on a panel with somebody and out of nowhere called him a white boy, just for no fucking reason.
Ooh.
Right? It had nothing to do with the argument, nothing to do with anything he was saying, but you felt the need to call him a white boy anyway.
This shit that
public stream with
it's
hundreds of
okay.
people
See,
watching.
thank you, Dooby. This is what my chat was warning me about. Okay.
Sure,
All
I can
right.
address
So, like,
that directly.
do you feel like you have a responsibility for like the racial animus or that could perpetuate?
Of course.
So what should be the consequence for you for doing
The
something?
Apologize.
So in my consequence, I lost 3 of my mods in that conversation. In that consequence, because I am a public figure and my name is my handle, people contacted my school about that. 2 individuals actually. So I had a meeting with my administration about that. And when I say my administration, I mean my principal and my assistant principal talked to me directly about that. They're discerned that there's no action moving forward, but to make it very, very clear when I am on stream, that there's a clear difference between who I am as a private individual and who I am when I'm talking about things publicly.
Okay.
I mean, that
Wait,
sounds
wait,
fair,
wait.
Would you,
right?
I
Yeah,
don't feel like
that sounds fair. Go
wait,
ahead,
is
Mr.
that what is your stance on having done that? Do you regret that?
Of course,
It just came
calling
out.
people white in conversations doesn't do anything to push forward the things that I advocate for and what I want to actually talk about. Like, as much as I'm frustrated, at the again, like, I'm a Black American, right? So
Yeah.
while I do have frustrations with the systems that be, and I'm also very frustrated at the sort of slow pace that specifically white Americans have when it comes to understanding not only the issues that Black Americans have, but how their particular privileges and their role in these institutions have, that gives me no right in my frustration to racially identify people in a way that leads to them feeling ashamed of themselves for being white, them feeling, I guess you would say, hesitant in even having conversations with me, and it doesn't give me the right. I just, like, that's not productive, right?
You want to shame white people on a mass scale, but not individually.
That's not what I said. I didn't
kind of.
say,
You said you're
or even
frustrated
imply
with the
that.
pace
I feel like
of white people
consequences
and
didn't fit the
understanding.
crime.
So like, and
Yeah,
the
I don't know if I'd agree with like going
issue,
to your like work and shit like that. That seems like a little far.
The mind thing
Okay,
felt
Matt.
fair.
yeah. So
Yeah,
like,
my
to
thing's
for me to
Oh
like,
yeah,
to,
I don't think
to
they
put
should
on
go
a
to your
pin.
work. I don't think they should go to your work either.
Sure,
address what Mr. Grohl's point was previously, and then the rest of that.
Yeah, like, to put it on the pin, and we can kind of move the ball forward. In that, like, I'm frustrated at certain individuals on this platform, but that doesn't give me any right to be antagonistic to them, especially based on their immutable characteristics. That's inconsistent with equity. And it's inconsistent with what I actually stand for. And it doesn't matter how frustrated I am, like, I am still a public individual that has my name literally as my handle. So the way I handle myself is incredibly important. And
Well, that's
So-
self-interest. I'm talking about responsibility you have to the audience, or
Can you
to
repeat the question one more time, like, to the full totality of it?
Dooby asked you about racial animus, and I'm pointing
Sure.
out that in your explanation, you're saying you shouldn't have lashed out at one person, but you're also saying I'm frustrated with the speed at which white people are understanding the way they participate in society, basically.
No, not directly. My frustration is not how they participate in society. People can
You
participate.
know, you
how
said
they
the speed
want.
is the speed with
Well-
which they are able to, the speed with which they are gaining an understanding, or something. I think you said
I
something
can
like that.
elaborate on that a bit. Like, my frustration comes in that as I'm fighting for the root cause of making sure that students are given the opportunities to be successful in school, the only people that I see in my personal navigation who are going directly against these things have been white Americans predominantly. And what ends up happening, especially in my position, I'm one of 6 Black teachers in my entire district. So when you are trying to fight for something, specifically not only for Black students, but for students of color, trans students, all students of marginalized groups, and then you see a very firm and very aggressive opposition of things that even myself and my other white colleagues argue does not exist within school curriculum, it gets very frustrating. And while the members of marginalized groups, especially within my district, are fighting to make sure that, hey, you know, things like critical race theory are not taught in our school. These books that you believe are pornographic or bring about the idea of promiscuity when it comes to sex, that's just one minute portion of what a book is trying to encapsulate. But then you still get people yelling at school board meetings. You still get people writing letters to
White
administration saying that they want to burn books. So the point I'm trying to make here is
White
that over the
people.
past 5 to 6 years, it gets very frustrating when navigating that. Now, again, there's different ways that I can navigate with that. But I think the most important thing that I have to do moving forward is not, no matter how frustrated I am, to not antagonize people like that, because it's not acceptable. It's not acceptable behavior. And
I still
have
think
real world
you're
consequences.
I still think. Well, you mean for yourself? Are you
No,
saying
it's not only for it's
you
not
feel
only for
bad for the
myself.
white people who heard you say that?
No. I don't think you're really understanding what I'm saying.
I am understanding what
I
you're saying. I'm disagreeing with what you're saying.
That's fine, but
Okay.
I have a responsibility not only for myself, but for
Yes.
everyone else around me. Because when I am navigating, I'm
Do
not
you think
only
it's
representative of
harmful to
myself.
white viewers to hear you say that?
Of course.
Okay, and so
I don't
that's
think I
part
would
of
say.
the.
I don't think I would go that far. I mean,
That's
you're allowed to feel that, and it's not like from some equitability of like, oh, like hearing whiteys doesn't affect white people the same. I just think in general, there is like I feel like harmful requires like just a higher threshold to me. I think it can be seen as maybe rude. It can be
racial
seen
animus.
as
It is racial
distasteful.
animus, right?
I don't know. I feel like the content. I feel like this is voluntarily bought into content. Like this isn't something that. I don't know.
Oh, so we can say
I
whatever
can see
we
the
we can say
threshold
whatever
being
we
higher.
want without harm. Like, my point is that Dooby brought up racial animus. I feel like the things you're saying, even right now, you're airing out some kind of racial animus, and I'm not
Can you
totally
elaborate
against.
on that a little bit? Like
Yeah, you're
I'm not
basically
really
saying I
catching
work
what
with a
you're
bunch
throwing.
of stupid white people and they suck and they piss me off.
No, I don't work with a bunch of stupid white people.
Well,
I
that's
have
what I'm hearing.
fantastic colleagues that are not only white but of all demographic. I don't know what
Okay.
I don't know what you're trying
You're,
to
so
get
you're
at.
saying okay? Oh, you're frustrated with the white people yelling at the school board meetings. White community, white
frustrated.
parents.
I'm frustrated with people in opposition towards marginalized groups
People
when it
who are
comes to the
white.
goal. When it comes to the goal
Yeah, I don't
of
think this
trying
is
to make
better
sure
than
that
just
students
yelling at
have.
somebody for being white. I feel like it's the
Of
same.
course, I
It's
don't
just
know why
longer.
His disagreement was
I don't know why we
political.
can.
It wasn't racial. Like
But just have.
it was
My
rooted in
disagreement
the.
is my disagreement. To Van's point, like my agreement is specifically political. It has nothing to do with race.
It has nothing to do with race. You.
There was actually a segment of black people who think that like critical race theory is some like huge thing being taught in elementary school too. It's really a point of like political ignorance.
No,
He's
but
having the issue with like you're making it a black
wait,
white issue.
no. You started out saying I yelled at this guy that he was I called him a white boy.
Yes.
And then you're like, instead of doing that, I should give context for why I'm frustrated. And then you said I'm frustrated
no,
with
I should
this.
not
You
give
said,
context to why I'm frustrated. I should stay within the
but
bounds of the
you
conversation
literally
being
said you're
discussed.
frustrated
And
with
I
white
should
people.
I should stay in the boundaries of the conversation as it is discussed. And even in my frustration, there's nothing.
But you just said you're
in calling
frustrated with
somebody a
white people.
boy if I'm frustrated at their arguments about
That's
something.
fine. You just said you're frustrated with white people.
That's,
I don't know how
that's
you
not
heard
exactly,
that. It's
I
fine.
don't know
This
how
is
you heard
circling.
that. But look,
I think
look,
we're circling,
we gotta table
We're not
this. 'cause
we're
gonna
not
be stuck up
circling.
with-
You're just
But
you
that is-
just
that is
said
kinda
you're
what you
frustrated with
said.
white people, and now
this gets
you're
like
saying
an
you didn't
interesting
say that.
question. And that
Sure,
question
like-
is like, who is ultimately responsible for creating consequences for harmful speech, right? Because in Joe Lewis's case, it was individuals who brought consequences, who, he lost mods and people like talked to people that were close to him, right? So
Yeah.
it's like individuals creating consequences. Do you think it's the responsibility of platforms ever to create consequences for speech, or maybe even the government? So I think we can like sort of focus the question there, like who is responsible? Should platforms create consequences for certain types of speech? Should governments, or should it be left up to the individuals? I think that would be really interesting to get everyone's views on that.
I think there's a responsible way to air out racial grievances, but I don't think the way you're doing it is responsible.
Have you watched any of my content?
I don't have to. This is a debate panel. I don't have to watch your content to respond to what you just said.
You're making a claim.
Have you listened to my rap album?
No.
Then you can't respond to anything I say until you've heard my entire rap album and memorized every song.
That's disingenuous to.
Don't you think but you're saying he is irresponsible? Yeah, like with that.
I'm saying you are being irresponsible right now. Like I have to watch your content to think what you just said is responsible. I don't think that. I think what you just said is irresponsible. I don't think you should be doxxed or attacked at work or anything. I don't think you should be banned. But I do think that, to Dooby's point, you are airing out racial animus and racial grievances, and possibly in a way that emboldens other people to spread or feel those feelings. I think there is a way to air out your frustration with a race of people if that's what you want to do.
I don't think there. Again,
but
I wanna
the way
kind
you're
of
doing
remove
it,
the racial point.
I don't think the way you're doing it is responsible. Because you're
So
either
what his-
calling
his
somebody.
Let's remove race from
Well,
this conversation, because
I
things
think
like
that's-
we're getting caught in that.
I think that's going to
Right?
be
Like-
impossible to do because one, Dooby's here,
That's
and
the
two,
issue. That's the issue.
Two-
That's the point.
Let's
Is you
try.
think it's impossible that
Well,
people.
can I just
we're
say-
all different
political
races.
positions are
So
like-
we're gonna. I
don't
think
know,
I think
you're
we're
saying
gonna.
everyone who hold on a second. Just hold on. I think it's weird that he's making like you're saying that everyone who holds this political position must obviously be white. Like this is some dog whistle for white people. When like saying that he has an issue with people who
He said white. He said I'm frustrated with
No.
white people.
No, he specifically said multiple times that maybe this is you not hearing correctly. He specifically
Maybe
said,
I'm gonna okay. When I post this on YouTube, I'm gonna post you saying that and then him saying white people. I'm gonna go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And you got
That'd be great.
Yeah, it is gonna be great.
Do that then, but let me finish what I'm saying. Do that, and I'll be owned, and it'll be great. But he specifically said, according to my ears and maybe the rest of the chat's ears, people who had an issue with critical race, the concept of critical race theory being taught in school. And you said, so you mean white people, right? And he said,
no.
no.
He said I'm frustrated with the speed that white people are able to like acknowledge or understand their role in society.
Sure, but
He said white-
he redirected what he was saying.
Yes, that's
Not
what
the
I'm.
role of
That's what I'm
society. Come
talking
on.
about. And so this is so typical of anyone who blurts out like a racial epithet or slur, and then you say, okay, so now we have to talk about how do you feel about white people? And they say, well, or whatever person, whatever group that they attacked, and they say, well. It's complicated. I'm just frustrated. And you're like, oh, you're frustrated with them? And then you say, well, no, I'm not frustrated with them. I'm frustrated with people who don't like critical race theory and people who want to burn books that have sex in them or whatever. And then
I
it's
think you
like,
can clarify
it's not a clarification. It's an obfuscation.
don't-
I believe that if you blurt out a racial slur, or if you blurt out a racial attack, that I believe that you do harbor anger or animus towards that race of people. And if, when questioned about it, you have some long, convoluted explanation, you're just hiding it.
I think that
And I don't think it should be. I don't think it should be.
beings who speak colloquially, like, do have generalizations. Like, I do, like, I don't know. I think there's people say like, oh my goodness, women get on my nerves, and then like, so there's not a single woman on this planet that you like, and then it's like, well, no, actually, more particular.
Okay,
And
being
you speak on
racist
some
does not
particular
being
thing, and-
okay. I can be racist against black people, but still like some black people. That doesn't mean that you don't like any of them. And if you can be
But
misogynistic but still like some women, that's not fair.
But I'm saying that if some people use speech like more colloquially, like I don't.
Okay,
think
so that's
everything
what.
is-
Okay, so you're
Overgeneralized,
you're saying that when Joe Louis called that person a white boy, Joe Louis does not harbor any resentment for white people. Joe Louis
No,
does
Joe,
not.
I apologize. I'm not talking about that. I'm saying whenever he made the generalization of white people, and you asked for clarification on what he meant there, and then he went more specific. But you, just
It's not
seemed
more
like you didn't
specific.
accept that
That's
clarification.
it's different. It's saying
You
people who
considered
don't
his
like.
clarification obfuscating. That's what you
It's
said.
not.
correct?
Yeah, it's not a clarification, and whether it's true or not, it's not more specific. He didn't say white people who are anti-CRT. He said people who are anti-CRT, and then you gave him a lifeline by saying that could even include black people, and he was like, "Yeah."
That's not
Okay, but that's
lifeline.
not
It's like, is
more
that true?
specific. That's not a more specific group. That's a different group.
Okay, then.
It's just different.
Well, the propaganda.
wanna-
This is actually good to tie back into what we're saying, because the propaganda within these opposition groups is the same, right? And like, if I talk about propaganda as information being used to promote a particular political cause or perspective, there's a very clear political cause and perspective within the propaganda that exists in counter narrative to diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, culturally responsive teaching, and culturally responsive training. The problem here is with that information and with this counter information, there's still, I would argue, disinformation. So false and inaccurate information explicitly designed to mislead people. For example, one of the things that's posited in an overwhelming majority of the anti-CRT bills that are getting pushed in the United States are all these ideas in terms of white animus and white anxiety. And by and large, most people who are in support of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and in support of culturally responsive teaching and training, they don't approach that because that's part of what they advocate for. within that nobody should feel any type of animosity because of their immutable characteristics, specifically and especially skin tone. But then what happens is you get one part of the phenomena, I should say, correct. But then when it comes to the additional information, they start positing things like they start misrepresenting a singular lesson plan or a singular instance in a classroom and say that like this is because of diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is because of culturally responsive teaching. But by and large, for a lot of these diversity and equity initiatives, a lot of the reports, and again, like when I'm saying reports, there are directors and different types of administration who do analysis of the diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, and then make different types of just analysis of the circumstances that are going on within the school. And one of the things that's shown time and time again is that particularly equity initiatives are not at a system-wide level. So what happens is you do get these individual instances of teachers doing culturally irresponsible teaching, like the one math teacher who did that weird like indigenous chant thing in the middle of math class.
So
when like, if you had a proper not only reinforcement but consistent not only I want to say education, but it is professional development on equity and how you can apply it within your teaching, then you won't have situations where teachers will think that that's okay. But people in opposition of what they're going to call CRT, but I understand it as diversity, equity, and inclusion and culturally responsive teaching, you're never going to get to that point where it's like, well, actually, within the school system, there was no diversity, equity, and inclusion officer. There was no equity officer. This is just a teacher functioning on their own accord. But that information is counter to what they're trying to push. They're trying to push that because of these things, this is happening. When in reality, sometimes in a lot of these schools, they don't have the resources to even have culture responsive teaching in their professional development, unless it's maybe one singular class, maybe like 30
I can't
minutes
understand what you're
I
saying.
think the problem, Joe Lewis, is that like even
Sure.
if ostensibly in diversity, equity, and inclusion practices, it says that no one should be alienated, the actual result is that people are alienated. And that's most often white people who, with good reason can see that like when these affirmative action policies are put in place, like SAT scores, being white has like no benefit, but like being Asian is actually going to decrease your chance of getting in college, even if you've got like a good SAT score, or language that like frames white people as colonizers. It's all good, well and good to say that like, well, people shouldn't feel alienated because that's what the system is. But like fundamentally, these belief systems are the kind of belief systems that pit different racial groups as classes. You read some of this old CRT literature, things by like Kimberly Crenshaw, and it's talking about Black people and white people as classes of people. And that kind of viewing of race, where white people have a class interest to oppress Black people, is the kind of thing that's going to make people feel alienated. And it doesn't matter if like ostensibly that's not the goal, because that's what happens.
Do you think there's a difference between descriptive and prescriptive language?
April, real quick, can you hear me? Like, check 1 2. Do I need to turn my mic up?
I can hear you. Yeah, I just had to,
Yeah, you had a point.
Didn't want you to interrupt my.
Sure, I didn't. Yeah, okay. Yeah, do I want to make it clear? So you can hear me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Great, absolutely fantastic.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so you started talking when I was speaking, anyways.
Correct. We can move past that. So, one of the things that I found interesting in your statement is that even within your qualms and frustrations, it felt like there was conflation between affirmative action versus CRT versus equity initiatives, and those three things are separate from each other, especially when they're applied in public schools. So I guess my question for you is, what exactly is your issue with equity initiatives in particular?
Oh, okay. So personally, I have a very big problem with equity initiatives in school, for example. And the reason is I think that policy should never take as one of its meaningful factors like skin color, right? Okay, let me elaborate. Basically, I think people should be chosen for their skills, not for their skin color. And I think as soon as you start eroding the meritocracy that we have in schools. That's a very dangerous road for society as a whole, but especially these institutions, which
You're against
premise
affirmative
on an
action?
understanding of meritocracy.
Are you against all
I
affirmative
think the
action?
colorblind,
April?
like overall, like even though
I want
just-
to before you do that, I do want to get that answer. Are you against affirmative action, April?
Oh yeah, for sure, definitely.
Okay.
Okay. I mean,
Yeah.
I can see that. So I guess the question is, within your quest of moving like a meritocracy framework, what do you do with students with IEPs and different types of special accommodations? Do you think that schools ought not to do that?
IEPs? What do you mean? I'm
Individual
sorry.
education programs.
Oh, okay. So can you give an example of that?
Sure. Certain, let's say you have a learning deficit that has an ADP, like me, which is an auditory, APD, excuse me. Which
She's
is
not
an auditory
being
processing
black
disorder.
is not a learning deficit. I
Yeah,
assume that
I'm
she's
not-
going to say
Having
that
an
you can't compare
auditory
those two.
processing disorder is a learning deficit.
Yes, but being
So
black
one of
is
the-
not. So
Who
she's
was-
talking.
I'm pretty sure
She's
Joe's
obviously
addressing a different point right now.
fine with affirmative action for people who have disabilities. That's not what
He
she's
didn't
saying.
say that. That's weird that you would assume.
Yeah, I
It's because
didn't
it's
say
fucking
that.
obvious. Okay, are you
But I mean, I
okay?
do think that accommodations should be made for anyone.
Yes,
who
obviously
has
you
a
think
learning
she's
disability.
against affirmative action. We all know what that means. I don't understand. Why do you have to ask her specifically if she's against affirmative action for like blind and deaf people? Like obviously.
I'm not talking about affirmative action for. Again, we're getting things kind of complicated, and like I don't know where.
Oh, I don't
to
think it's
start to
complicated
tackle
at
it.
all.
Sure. So let me try this a different way, April. Do you believe that schools should ensure the fair treatment, equality of opportunity, and equality of access to information and resources in schools?
Absolutely. And the key word here is equality.
Destiny, if you
Everyone
just
should
rated
have
me,
access
thank
to
you
the
very
same
much.
resources.
So the
Welcome,
thing that
guys.
confuses me
Unless I'm
is
misunderstanding
that
what
is
happened.
definitionally how my
Yeah,
district
you're
defines
here.
equity.
All right, thanks.
So
Welcome.
what
Welcome
within
aboard.
that, if you do have an
This
issue
shit's
with
gonna get
equity,
ugly.
like what's your problem within that you have concerns for?
Yeah. So my problem is that when the criteria for entering someone into a program becomes anything
Oh,
other
well, congratulations
than
to
their
her.
actual capability to do the work, we are eroding the meritocracy. And so
Well, you're all
it's
still
not good
welcome.
to set as one of your reasons for including people or not including people skin color, right? Everyone should be given a chance based on their ability. And I think when we look at like schooling, a good policy would be to provide scholarships to any intelligent student who can prove need. And if you do that, it's going to disproportionately benefit Black kids. That's awesome, right? Because we want every kid who's intelligent and capable of really succeeding in college to have the opportunity to do so. We want that. And that kind of policy is great. What's not a good policy is to set a quota and say, we need to have this proportional representation of these skin colors. Because the end result of that is you're going to be searching for BIPOC candidates to put into your program, even if they're not going to be
Okay,
totally qualified.
I think that's a great argument, but do you guys not know the counter arguments to affirmative action? I feel like we all should already know all of the points on both sides here. Like I feel like we can just like, okay, Dooby, what?
So just a quick totally unrelated thing. While you guys were arguing with each other, my girlfriend came into the room, leaned over as if she was going to kiss me, and then tried to force chewed chicken into my mouth like a bird. And I
That's
feel
assault.
more violated than I've ever felt in my entire life.
You were just
It was
raped.
absolutely. Okay, but back on topic.
Yeah.
I feel like we've kind of gone off the rails here because what we were meant to be talking about is what Joe said and the consequences. Now, we can talk about affirmative action and all that kind of stuff. I feel like that's a huge rabbit hole that we can get into if you guys really, really want to.
I don't think
But
we
what's
need
more
to. Don't we
interesting
all
to
know
me-
everybody's positions on affirmative action
Yeah.
already? I feel like it's all
But-
very obvious and
But
straightforward.
what's more interesting to
We're
me
not talking
is
to just each other.
if so Joe has expressed that he thinks this is a bad thing to do, right? When he did that, and the reason it was so like relevant to me is I think that either the day before or the day after I was on here with Prime, and we spoke to this guy Mio who's like a white nationalist dude, right? And the kind of stuff that Joe did, right? This kind of like casual racism toward a white person on a public platform, totally, I guess, accepted apparently within the group, and that was kind of how something that he used to fuel his argument. Like, hey, it's okay to be racist to white people these days. White people are going to be oppressed. Little Timmy's going to be called white boy, and he's going to be treated like shit for being white, and yada yada, right? And Joe was doing that thing, right, on this platform, right? And Joe, so I acknowledge that you said it was a bad thing to do, and I don't agree with people going after your job or anything like that. I think that's really fucked up. But I wonder if you can commit here to not doing that sort of thing again, not essentializing somebody or going after somebody with some kind of like racial insult, bringing up the race for some reason.
Of course, my commitment moving forward, to make sure it's very, very clear, is that I want better outcomes for students in public schools. And I want
What? That's
to
not what he's
have
talking about. Stop
better-
it. Stop. You have to stop.
I'm trying
I
to
can't
say the full encapsulation of
I
what
don't.
I want to do
You,
moving
well, can you
forward.
not? Can
And
you
if
say
you
the
have a
non-full encapsulation?
But you
This
didn't
is
ask the question.
terrible.
Just let him answer the question.
He's not going to answer it. He's not going to answer it. I don't want.
And
I can't.
I'll call him out if he doesn't. But just let him answer it.
I'm
Okay,
trusting
so,
you.
well, let's
Oh, wait.
let's
But
rewind
he's
then.
already
Let's rewind
not.
then. Let's rewind then.
Oh
Dooby,
God!
can you answer your
Fast
question
forward.
again?
Go
Can you ask
rewind.
the question?
So given that we know that this isn't that what you did is kind of a negative thing that the white nationalists use to fuel their white nationalism and to pull other people into white nationalism.
And it's
Right,
wrong
just kinda
on its own,
casual-
Doobie.
and it's wrong on its own.
It's wrong on
And
its
it's
promise
own.
not to be mean again.
unless it's funny, and it's okay. I'm joking, and it's wrong on its own. Right.
Dooby.
Can you commit here to not doing that again, right? To not
Yes.
attacking somebody for the race or bringing up the race when it's totally irrelevant to the conversation.
Yes.
Can I ask a
Good.
question?
Can I elaborate on my? Can I elaborate on my goal now?
in there somewhere
Elaborate your
after
goal.
this.
I do have a question that's based on this, but like kind of moves us in a slightly different direction.
Sure. So, what I try to do in my space is prioritize educational politics. And with that is going to come different types of difficult conversations on how we can do better by students. Very clearly, and it seems to be Mr. Girl's frustration, and Dooby, you've seen that there's frustration too.
What?
That I have an anti-white bias, which I'll admit.
No.
I would
That's not my
I'll go as
frustration.
far as say-
I'm okay
May I
with it.
finish?
I'm okay.
May I
No,
finish
no,
my
yeah,
point?
let me
May I
finish. Come
finish
on.
my point?
Please.
Okay, sure, but you're misrepresenting me.
Joe Lewis.
That's fine. We can move on from here because we're probably at the table moving forward. That being said, I need to make sure that the content that I put out publicly and what I want to do is consistent with that goal. And going after people based on their immutable characteristic is not that. So that's all I got from that.
Okay. This idea of going after someone's job, right? I think you've all since agreed that that was uncalled for in Joe's situation. But at the same time, we see this when a Karen strikes, right? We see people cheer for exactly that. What's the difference between these situations? If you've ever cheered for a Karen, then why not here as well? Not that I want Joe. Joe's a fantastic human being. I want him to keep his job. He's a great teacher. So put that out there. Like, that's my base right there. But I don't know what the difference is here. If you think this is actually, I think, a racial animus, I'm less convinced of that myself right here. But if you believe that is the case, then why isn't this called for?
I mean, I guess you'll have to speak to other people, but I've never thought the concept of like going after a private citizen's like a workplace when their work is also like a private sector type thing I don't know. That's always been really cringe to me. Now, the only time I never really cheer for it because I gain nothing from someone else being harmed. Like I don't even believe in like a punitive justice model, in like just generally. But like maybe if you are like in a place of like public speaking, like if not even a Joe Rogan, like a Tucker Carlson or something, and someone like holding you accountable for what you do in that official capacity, then that's probably more appropriate. But yeah, I never cheer for people going for the Karens. That's cringy to me.
Yeah, I don't. The idea that every black person who has racial animus towards white people just shouldn't have a job is a very weird idea. Like I don't. That would definitely make things worse for black people and for everybody in general. Like that's not a good plan, and it will just increase racial animus anyway. So to me that makes no sense. I don't get the idea of like if somebody said something bad that they shouldn't have their current job. Like should they never have another job? Like I don't think that makes sense.
So,
Absurd. And the
just
best way to like fix that is to talk with them and like empathize
Yeah,
and
exactly.
try to.
Yeah.
oh, okay. So, are you sure that's true across the board? There was just an incident that happened in New York, I think. Right? I don't know sports, but I think these were Knicks fans. No. And they were on a train, and they saw like it seemed like a mixed race family, from what my understanding is. They were telling them like, get the hell out of here. You don't belong in our country. Like they're trying to take it over. One guy threw his beer at them, right? And they lost their jobs at, I believe it was like a Toyota dealership or something like that. And
like
so, they
I
assaulted-
understand from a money perspective. I get why Toyota is like, I don't want you to work here because you're just hurting business. That makes sense. But I'm just saying from a justice perspective, I don't like. There's not really a reason why a racist person or a violent person or a crazy person can't work at like Toyota unless they're doing those things at
Is
the
that
job.
true? Is that true? Well, first of all, absolutely. I mean, there's a reason why they can't work at McDonald's because they're working in food service.
Okay,
What do they do
so-
to the food of people who they don't like, right? Like you don't know. So that's one thing, right? Moving on, there is when it comes to teaching. Okay, so again, I'm not talking about my man Joe. My man Joe is actually quite amazing, but there was this woman in Florida. And she had a lot of racial animus. She was white, and she apparently had a like a podcast, like a Nazi podcast. She was telling about like how she's like a kindergarten teacher, and she actively discourages black children, like 5-year-olds, right, black and brown children, right, to make them feel worse about themselves, and then like tries to encourage the white students as any chance to get, right. Should a person like that not lose their job?
Well, I think that's in direct relationship with their like job. I think they're failing
Yeah.
at the
One,
job.
but do you think any white nationalists, whether they admit it or not, like would not do something similar? She just simply stated exactly what she was doing. But if there was a someone who is has displayed extreme racial animus, right? Do you think they would not still do the exact same thing?
I think
a
that
black person, right, going through the education system, I've experienced racist teachers, right? Lots of black individuals, you talk to them, right? You experience straight up racist teachers. So those people have had.
Well,
their
I don't
jobs.
understand why do you think that a white teacher who blurts out something equivalent to what Joe Lewis said should teach black kids?
So
Why are you giving him? But why are you?
I'm moving things on. I'm
Yeah.
trying
Yeah,
to
I know,
move
but
it
you're
along
moving things
away
on
from
because
that.
Joe Lewis is black. But if he were white, I don't know that you would be moving things
I
on.
feel like we
Well,
addressed
that's
it.
that,
I think it was
that's
no,
I
Mr.
think that
Go,
is what
Mr.
I do
Go.
think.
That's
I
not what I'm
I
saying,
think that
Mr. Go.
Prime.
I think that is
Hold
what
on,
you
hold
are
on, hold on,
doing.
Hold on, Mr. Go. That's not
Yes.
what I'm saying. I'm
I
saying
think
I'm
it is
moving
what
it
you're
along
doing.
to a more extreme example. Not that I'm like hiding from Joe Lewis's point. I'm talking about like
it's not more extreme. You said no. You said that. You said that. I don't think it's more extreme.
Hold on. If no one should ever lose their job under any circumstances, I'm trying to test that. What is your limits here?
I didn't say no one should lose their job under any circumstances. But the example you just gave of a white teacher being more encouraging to white students, if I were the principal at Joe's school and I heard about this, I would probably want to talk to him too. I wouldn't try to fire him, but I would be like, how are you managing your obvious racial animus towards white people, how are you managing that in the classroom? Is this coming out in your work? How are we going to
I think
handle
that's
this?
really fair. I think it's a really
Because
fair question because I can agree that if it you just actually clued me into this, right? Because if it had been a white dude saying calling someone black boy on here, I wouldn't want them teaching at a school, right? To children, to black children, because I'd assume, I'd somewhat justifiably that they're not going to be treating these children very well. So I think that's a really interesting thing to bring up, Mr. Girl.
I don't know. I think this is
Well,
a super reach, and to the problem. I'm
I
not
don't
saying
think
no
so,
one should
Mr.
ever
Girl.
be fired, but there's a substantial difference between saying something like I'm not against public shaming. I'm not against you do something bad like publicly people see you in a negative light and don't want to be associated with you. But I think the concept of like actively seeking out someone's workplace like to cause them like financial and physical harm, like I think that's the dangerous part. If your business is like if something blows up and your job happens to find out and it's like negative publicity against them and they don't feel comfortable having you in that position, that's a different thing. That's not saying that like people shouldn't be fired. I just think that the idea of like this social media justice response to people you think are doing harm of like let's call their job, let's take their children, let's ruin their life. I think that is cringy.
I think the key word here is extreme racial animus, because I think a lot of people have some sort of racial animus. And like, I talk to people like my girlfriend, she's Mexican, and she, I think, has like some racial animus towards white people based just on like her experiences. And she knows there's like a heuristic in her brain where if someone's going to be racist to her, it's probably going to be a white person. But do I think that like precludes her from, ever being in a job because she has like some racial animus? No, probably not. And I think the difference is like the extreme versus like mild. And I think what like Joe Lewis said, saying like white boy, frankly, that doesn't seem like extreme racial animus to me. And I think it's a little bit different than like calling someone black boy, because like that is a charged term. And like calling black people like boy is something that you see like with racists. So
I think they're both pretty charged terms. Like,
but like
I
one
think
is
another thing's
obviously
becoming
much more
increasingly charged.
because it is a different.
one has like more
history.
history behind it, right? But they're
Yeah, but
still
we're
racially charged.
creating the history for white boy being offensive now.
Right.
Okay, I have a
April,
couple observations I want to make real quick. One, I think liberals have a problem where they're like, everyone is racist. We all have to own our racism. But if you reveal your racism to anyone for any reason, you lose your job and you're publicly shamed. I think if we really believe, as April said, that most people have some kind of racial animus, then I don't think you should be punished too much for revealing it. I think it should be more about how are you going to manage it in your life and how are you going to still do a good job at your job, even if you carry that view. And then the other thing is, I think most racial animus is defensive. Most racist people feel that they are being, like you said about your girlfriend, feel like they're under attack from the race that they are racist towards, including white people. And so, yeah.
I feel like you're just saying words right now. That felt very.
Well, I don't think white people are the most racist race.
April, you brought up something that I kind of want to address.
Please.
You mentioned that your partner was Mexican. You said I
Yeah,
totally
she's
missed
like
that.
mestizo.
Gotcha. And you said that you believe that, or maybe you said she expressed it. I didn't catch either or, that she has certain responses towards white people in her life. And you mentioned like her past experience with white people.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. So what do you believe to be a way to alleviate the circumstances that would lead to her having those type of animosities towards white people?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting question because, like, a lot of white people get very frustrated when they interact with people of color who are maybe not like the warmest to them. And I think this especially happens like with racial discussions where if I'm talking about race and I have like more conservative views, I think it's like a normal heuristic for people to recognize that if a Black person has like more conservative views, they're less likely to be actively racist than a white person who's expressing sort of conservative views and is maybe like hiding their power level. So I think this like sort of cautiousness is pretty legitimate. But the best thing that you can do in that situation is really try to hold open a space of empathy for why someone might have those feelings or that frustration or that mild animus. And then also try to really go the extra mile to make them feel comfortable. So like, you know, if I were to just meet my girlfriend like on the street and we were to have a conversation about race, I think the appropriate response for me, even though like it's extra effort, is to just hold open like extra space and understanding for why she might be uncomfortable and try to meet her where she's at.
Okay. And then I guess as a follow-up to that question, because that was a good perspective. Thank you for that. What are ways that you believe a Mexican student could feel what you're describing specifically within the education system? What are some ways that you think a school district could do something like that?
Like
in terms of holding
hold
space,
open space?
in terms of
Oh, okay.
accommodation, stuff like that.
I'm not sure. I think you would probably have a much better answer on this than I would. But maybe like you'll say something and I can key off of it. What do you think is like a good way to hold space for this kind of anxiety?
Well, I think everything that you described. The reason why I asked you the question in particular is because something that tends to happen, especially with those who are looking towards meritocracy, especially within public schools, is that when we start talking about accommodations and holding space for people of marginalized groups, in this case we're talking about a Mexican student, there tends to be a conflict in interest within keeping sort of like I guess you would say meritocracy frameworks, but also keeping space for those types of individuals, whether it be Mexican or otherwise. For example, I guess one thing that I think school districts should try to do is to ask the question, are we approaching our hiring in a way that is actually reflective of our student body? And this has nothing to do with affirmative action, by the way. And that's a totally separate thing. I want to make sure this is clear. And that there's a difference between saying that we need, say, 15% of our student population, our teacher population to be Mexican, versus within our district, there are, we'll say, our district makes up, we'll say, 47%, we'll say Mexican for this example. And does that 47% feel represented not only within the student body, but also within the administration body as well?
I feel like advocating for race quotas in hiring is the exact opposite way to deal with like racial animus.
Yeah.
And I agree. It's not a race quota. I'm talking specifically about. I'm talking. No, I can elaborate for sure. It's like, are we asking the question?
But either way, I feel like we're deep down that rabbit hole I mentioned earlier again, right?
Yeah, I cannot understand what you're saying.
Right, I'm talking to April specifically about this.
I mean, if I can respond a little bit.
Yeah, unless we want to just move on from that.
I can't follow. I cannot understand what you're talking about.
Right, and it's this tension between holding space for ideas and, you know, putting all ideas on equal footing versus holding people to like higher standards. So there's this term that I've heard thrown around called epistemological equity. Epistemology is just the study of truth and how do we come to believe and justify our beliefs. And equity, like we've talked about, is this idea that like all things need to be raised to an equal playing field. But the fundamental reality is that there are some epistemological worldviews that are less effective in a university setting. So if you adopt the epistemological worldview of scientific rationalism of hypothesis and questioning your data and trying to like disprove your initial biases. That's something that's
April?
going to really benefit you versus the epistemological. I'll get to you in one
April?
second. Yeah.
Well, I just want to. So I totally understand every single word coming out of your mouth right now. I understand every concept, everything, right? But for the people in chat, right, the
And
simple
me,
folk,
I don't know what the fuck you guys are talking about.
can you maybe like bring it down out of the ivory tower a little bit?
Yeah,
down to the
tone it
common man's
down,
perspective,
people.
Okay.
right? And maybe
That's
Jesus.
fancy words.
Fucking
you.
Christ.
You're right. I do tend to speak in incredibly pretentious ways.
This is why they should ban philosophy. Yeah.
What I basically mean is that like sometimes belief systems are worse than other belief systems, okay? And you should hold space for people to feel included, but you shouldn't hold so much space. You enable belief systems that are negative and detrimental to society. So people should feel welcome, but if someone requires that everyone buy into their epistemological, into their worldview in order to feel welcome, then that's going to be a step too far. So I think there's like a tension here, and we can find it.
I think this is something that's really easy to say, but it's a way harder to implement. Like obviously,
true.
like if I if we were just saying things, I would say that like only good ideas should be had as part of society. But like, how do we define that? How do we implement it? Like to me, that if we can't implement it, it feels close to useless. Now, I'm not saying what you're saying is useless because I generally agree with it, but I don't think we would ever be able to socially define and like hold accountable what we consider to be the right types of ideas.
I mean, I think the key thing here is that as long as we agree that not all ideas are equal and that everyone should just be like included to the point where it's destructive, I think we're on the same page, right? Where inclusion is not like the only metric, but also we want to progress society in other ways. So
that's why I started with like being socially unpopular, even though like I understand the like the larger implications of like saying that like the right position can be like socially unpopular. There's a lot of things that are probably good for society. They're right now socially unpopular, but it seems to be all we have is something so demonstrably like if something is like economically harmful that these especially like relating to like COVID or a lot of these other things going on, like businesses are saying that like this type of negative speech, even though they can't necessarily control all of it, a lot of it is being like blocked and censored, and that's what like conservatives have an issue with right now. And I feel like it's probably the most useful way of doing things.
I'm gonna freak out. Am I in the fucking Twilight Zone? We're not talking about the topic. This is not about the question, right? What the
I was
fuck is
addressing
going
what you said because I haven't been able to address anything else.
You're way down that rabbit hole too, where everybody's using $10 words.
No, but we're not even talking. We're not even talking about the topic that we're supposed to be talking about. I don't know what the fuck we're talking about.
I was talking about censorship. I brought it back.
I do want to move on. because we
Thank God, Prime. Oh God.
Let's please move on.
For the
let's
love.
Go ahead. All right, Dooby, give it a try.
I have so Mr. Girl. This is
Yes.
for you.
Yes, dear.
So I have something similar to what I have for Joe for you.
Okay.
So you were on, I think you were on Wiki Supreme stream. Or you might have been on Lauren Southern's. One of those two, right? And I was watching.
I was mouthing off.
It might have been Wiki Supreme actually.
What did I say?
It was one where you said that you would rather watch the world burn than not say what you want to say, right? Something to that effect.
Yeah.
And that seemed, and because of what you were talking about at the time was the potential that you normalizing conversations about child attraction, right? Not molesting children, to be clear, but just that sometimes some adults are going to find some young girls attractive.
Really?
Right? And kind of, yeah. I mean, if you weren't trying to, if you weren't suggesting that, correct me. But that's what I got from it, right? So that we should normalize that conversation, right? And talk about what I think you said that it was natural, right, for some guys to look at some young girls and just to feel attracted to them, right?
I believe that I said that.
That
sounds like
if it's an immoral thing, right, for them to act on those intentions.
Obviously, there would be a moral to act on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've watched like a bunch of your YouTube content, and I found a video that was I think from earlier I guess mid last year.
Okay.
It was about like a monster you've been running from or fighting your whole life.
Yeah.
right? And and then you kind of went into your background a little bit, and
Yeah.
you talked about your stepmother and
No,
about
that's
how
my.
you felt like you had to like tiptoe around everything you said
Yeah.
because it was everything you said was kind of used against you and weaponized in some way because it seems like she was some like hyper SJW type, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you talked
She's a
about
man-hating lesbian.
yeah. So I think one of the things you used was like you said that muscles were gross, and then she like came into your room and was like, oh, you guys know that muscles are
Yeah, yeah,
are
yeah.
like
So my
the
brother
guys
and
say the
I
muscles
we
taste like
were
vaginas and shit.
we made a joke about how we were eating like a large amount of smoked mussels, like in
Yeah.
oil, on crackers, and we were joking about how like gross it was to eat like an entire container of mussels, but we like couldn't stop because they were really good. And then yeah, my stepmother followed me up to my room. I was probably like 13, and yelled at me because she was like, you know that people compare muscles to vaginas, so you're saying muscles are gross because you think vaginas are gross. And I was like, I've never heard this. I don't know what you're talking about. I, I, I don't want to talk about vaginas with you. I was not trying to talk about vaginas. Like, you're crazy, super oversensitive and insane. Yes, that was the story. Continue.
Does this
Yes.
go closer to the topic?
And then
I don't.
yes,
I'm
yeah,
here.
I'll get there.
He's gonna bring
Be
it home.
patient.
It's
Be
Dooby.
patient.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, I always get home. Okay, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
So and then you started talking about some of the stuff you used to do in the school, right? You used to like write like articles
Newsletter.
or little
Yeah, I had a
newsletters.
news. I would hand out
Right?
my
And they're
newsletter in
very
the
edgy.
lunchroom. Very
Funny,
edgy.
extremely funny for your age, actually. For anyone's age, they're very funny. Like the one
Thank you.
about the pedophile principal, really funny
Thank
work.
you. Thank you.
But and you started talking about how you'd get in trouble for that, right? And you getting in trouble for that, right? When you knew where you felt like a lot of people in the school actually agreed with you, a lot of the teachers agreed with you, right?
Yeah.
Even though other teachers were coming to you as if it was like some outlandish thing you were saying, a lot of them actually agreed with you, but they weren't saying it because they were like they were worried about the mob, right? This monster that would come after them if they said the wrong thing, right?
Yes. Yeah, there was a
Um,
letter that was circulated saying I was racist and anti-Semitic and homophobic. And I think 50 teachers signed it. And I complained to one of my teachers like that. I was like, I can't believe this is happening. And she was like, well, think of it this way. 100 teachers didn't sign it. And I was like, well, that's
Yeah.
not that. Like, thanks for going to bat for me. Yeah, you didn't sign the letter saying I was racist. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, in what I think what you were talking about was the monster was the fear that the fear of other people's disapproval, basically, right? So you say the wrong thing, and other people are gonna disapprove, and they're gonna shame you, and nobody else is gonna speak out for you because they don't want to get shamed too, even if it's a majority opinion,
Yeah.
right? And I wonder how much of that perspective, right? This idea that because when I first heard you say that thing about letting the world burn, rather than like not saying anything you want to say, it sounded extremely irresponsible to me, right? Given the topic, right? And I wonder like how, and I still think that perspective when you're talking about that issue is irresponsible. I think you probably should look into whether or not normalizing that kind of attraction, or at least discussion about that kind of attraction could lead to like child molestation.
That's not okay.
I
Can I push back on
Yeah,
that
go
very
for it.
briefly? I'm not saying we should normalize an attraction to children. I'm saying we should normalize talking about things about ourselves or each other that are bad. So, for example, in this conversation, it would be normalizing talking about racial animus, saying, being able to openly admit, yeah, I kind of hate white people, or I have problems with black people, or like April's girlfriend, I'm mistrustful of white people. Those feelings, I don't think talking about them normalizes them, and I don't think it even helps them spread. It might help make them safer. And so it would be the same thing with being attracted to children or teenagers or whatever. Any sexual feeling that you're having, I think if you can talk about it with yourself or with your loved ones or friends or a therapist or whoever, it gives you a better chance at loving yourself and at kind of controlling it and knowing like, how's this going to work in my life?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's more like So if we're talking about monsters, it would be like this thing is the monster in the back of everybody's mind, and they're just not talking about it. So it's allowed to fester and build, and it comes out sometimes. And then we hide it away again. We pretend it's not there. It's like it's that sort of thing, right? So you want us to acknowledge that this thing exists inside of us sometimes, or at least in some of us. And we should acknowledge that and work together to like get rid of it or to deal with it.
Yeah. But
Is
to
that
kind
what
of
it is?
steel man what you're saying, I think the movie Cuties would be a good example of something that actually could create more sexual feelings towards children just by making it and distributing it.
Right.
More than just a conversation would, like art or like a book like Lolita. Like if you're writing about sexual attraction to children in a way that's kind of salacious, then I think you get more to the question of, do I want to burn Lolita, or am I going to prioritize free speech while knowing that I might be making the world a worse place, even for children? Is that
Where
what
do
you're
you
getting
come
at?
down on that? What do you think is what you prioritize?
I prioritize free speech. I come down on it right where the Constitution comes down on it. I don't think you should make child porn, and I don't think you should be able to watch child porn, but I think you should be able to write a book about whatever you want. And I think you should be able to draw whatever you want, or think about whatever you want, fantasize
What
about
do you
whatever you
think the
want,
distinction
Without
is there?
consequences.
Is it just like
without
the actual
consequence.
children being hurt?
Wait, sorry, April.
What is the distinction between producing child porn or writing it or drawing
Well,
it?
child
Is it
porn
just like
involves
the
you
child?
have to hurt a child to make child
Okay,
porn.
yeah.
But if you're writing it, no, I think you should. With writing, absolutely, you should be able to write whatever you want. I mean, as whatever fucked up shit you want to express, you should be able to write it. But you are putting those thoughts out there, and then somebody might read it and be like, "Oh, this just turns me on." And maybe it's not just awakening something. Maybe it really is putting a new idea or a new feeling into that person.
Right.
I don't. I'm about to say, without even
but
going
even
more
if
specific into this, like, do you think that? Do you mean when you say do whatever you want? Do you mean without social consequences?
I mean,
Like,
without
or,
legal.
I mean,
No,
like
no, no, no.
consequences,
Without
I don't think
without
anybody's talking like
without.
social
Yeah.
consequences.
Okay, so yeah, without legal consequences for sure. In my ideal world, if I am writing like super graphic erotica involving minors, and then I'm also like a little league coach, would there be no social repercussions? I like if they find out about. I would want basically the same thing that happened to Joe. Like basically, I think you should talk to the person and find out how if this is affecting your work, and then if it is, then they can't do that work. I think if somebody, I would draw the line if somebody's like literally a pedophile and they're like, I am in love with children and I want to marry a child and they should be able to consent and blah blah blah. That person probably shouldn't work with children, for
I don't
sure.
know. I think that people have
And if
some
someone's
level,
in the
like I think
KKK,
even
they
people
shouldn't.
who do good speech have like have an understanding of like the repercussions of what they do. Even if you're like even like black radicals like the Black Panther, like when people take these steps to step into things that are considered controversial, like
Yeah.
or in activists, like in activist field, like I feel like there's some level of knowing what you're getting into. I think those consequences shouldn't, like I said, I don't think people should come for your job or like try to attack your family or anything like that. But I think socially, if you want to make if you're going to make a stance as a part of society, good or bad, like
Yeah.
you have to be ready for the social repercussions.
Yeah, I
that
don't
come
think.
with it.
Yeah, but I think we all kind of understand that. But I'm wondering. So the reason this kind of stuck out to me is because I've had that argument with people 1,000 times, right, about what I allow in my community, right? I allow people to make lots of really scary arguments, right? um,
Yeah.
and I wonder, like, but on that topic specifically, for me, that's like there's a line there, right? That I've drawn a box around this topic, and if I feel like it can normalize this thing, I'm not interested in having the debate, right?
We don't
But
have
I
that.
wonder,
So
like,
in my Discord, you're not allowed to sexualize children, but that's
right.
because it will get the Discord deleted. Not
If I feel like it can normalize this thing, I'm not interested in having the debate, right?
we
But
don't
I
have that.
wonder,
So
like,
in my Discord, you're not allowed to sexualize children, but that's
Right.
because it will get the Discord deleted, not because
Right.
not because I don't think you should be allowed to talk about it. It's just that it's like a business, and it's like a, you know, the Discord's like, it's like my restaurant that I own, and like you can't talk about it in my restaurant. You can talk about it in the fucking parking lot, but like I don't. Yeah. Then when I say sexualized children, I mean don't like, we've had like pedophiles come in who want to talk about pedophilia or want to do like an AMA or something like that. And that's like, if you keep it super clinical and vague, fine. But as soon as you start getting into details, no.
I know Dooby kind of started it. Is this who you want to be? Like, and I'm not, and I'm saying no like personal positions about you, but like, do you want to be the pedo guy? Is that like the thing that? Because I know you didn't
Wait,
necessarily
I
bring
don't
up the
think that's
topic.
fair to. I don't think it's fair to ask even. I don't think
No,
anybody.
but
I
I'm
don't think
saying,
anything
I'm
he's done
saying,
is like.
but that's. I'm not saying it in a negative sense. I'm saying, does he want that to be his niche? Does he he want all of his in-depth discussions to be surrounded around that topic? Like, I'm not gonna say if that's good or bad. I'm just saying, is that something that is like, yeah, this is what I want to be known for? Because people do have niches.
Wait, are you asking me? Or are you asking?
No, I'm asking Mr. Girl. Because
No,
it seems like
no.
every topic around you comes to that.
It always comes back to that. No, I want to be the empathy guy.
Okay. I don't
And
know.
that
It was just
includes-
weird. I was wondering how we got here, and I was like, "This is."
Well,
like,
Dooby made me do it.
yeah,
But
Dooby.
I'm the
Don't
empathy
do it,
guy,
Dooby.
and we
Let's talk about other stuff.
we empathize with pedophiles the least, and so that's
Right.
part of why I think I keep coming back to it.
Okay.
Yeah. So just to kind of expand this, to like what I was getting at. So for me, like I said, there's like a box around that topic, right? Where I'm not interested in engaging in arguments with people, even like steel manning them, where I feel like it could lead to like child molestation, shit like that, but it doesn't seem like there is for you, and I wonder like I wonder like how far that goes. So like if they're like I think like up to 5% of the men in the United States are pedophiles, right? According to like whatever fucking studies they have to come up with that number. So there's millions of people in this country, millions of guys specifically who are pedophiles. So if a writer did want to like start making erotica, like literotica, right, for pedophiles, they could probably find a market and make a good living doing that, right? Specifically
and they
books
do.
that, like sexual.
They have and they do.
Yeah, and so, but you wouldn't say that's something that should be banned, or you would allow them to do it because
Absolutely. Yeah, because you have to draw a line somewhere. You're never going to perfectly be able to draw a line that gives us all the freedom we want and all the safety we need. And so you have to decide, do you want to err on the side of being safe, which means shutting down some ideas and some speech and some self-expression, or and some of those things which may not even be harmful at all, or do you want to err on the other side of, you be you, you express yourself, you make your art, you make your writing, do whatever you want, and we're gonna clean up the mess after. And I firmly believe that to be America, and part of why we are the way we are, and when I say that, I mean the good things about America, is because we err on the side of freedom.
But again,
So
I
you'd
feel like
be
that
more like
begins and ends at the free speech. I mean, that begins and ends at the government. Like we pass that. There's all types of ways where we limit people, and that I think that's the more interesting conversation.
Well, I think he's asking more on a philosophical level. Like, do I personally? So I'm aligning it with the First Amendment just because I love the First
something
Amendment.
can be demonstrated to
harm
do harm
people,
right? Would you still allow it just because you so firmly believe in this principle? And I think your answer is yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, no, I mean, clearly there is a
my
line,
answer is yes.
right? And he illustrated that line earlier when he said that, like, the production of porn involving minors.
Yeah,
like,
but he's just
causes
talking about
harm
the
to
ideas. He's
minors.
saying, would I, knowing it's going to cause other people to do bad things, to commit crimes and break laws, do I have some kind of responsibility for putting those ideas in their heads or normalizing them somehow, intentionally or not intentionally? I would say no. I think we need to keep speech and art as unburdened by the moral consequences as we can. At the same time, I think a lot about the moral consequences of my speech, and so it's really important to me that I don't cause harm in that way. But if you're asking me to choose, obviously I want to have my cake and eat it too. But if I had to choose between freedom and whatever the fucking other thing is, I would choose freedom.
But we've established there's a line, and the line seems to be the production of harm, or the creation of harm in the production of that speech. But I'm not exactly sure the moral distinction between speech that directly causes the exact same consequences as a result of being put out in the world versus speech that causes the same consequences, but in its production. It seems like the same thing is happening, where the speech is being put out and the same negative harm is occurring. And so clearly in one case, you think it's negative and the speech shouldn't be allowed. But in another, where it causes the exact same thing, you think it should be allowed.
Yeah.
Okay. I think it's a
because I ultimately don't think it's the responsibility
to take.
Well, I think that's nonsense. I think that it's not the responsibility of you speaking about your ideas or making a fictional. It's like the difference between saying making a YouTube video where I like blow up a grocery store with a pipe bomb versus making a YouTube video, a fictional short film where somebody does that and then somebody copies me and does it in real life. Like, I don't think I bear the same responsibility in both situations.
I agree, but I think that has to do with your knowledge. So when you create a short film, you are under no reasonable circumstance expecting someone to take inspiration and blow up a convenience store, right? That'd be unreasonable. But my question is a little bit more pointed to you. And it's, if you knew that a particular sentence, let's say you could like speak the words, and the words would cause someone to go out and molest a child, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that speaking those words would be something that you shouldn't do? Or do you believe that, again, because it's a consequence outside of the production of the words themselves, that it is then justified?
If I knew?
Yeah.
And is there any other reason I want to, like, is there a reason I feel like I need to say those words? Like, I guess I would.
Yeah.
I personally wouldn't say them, but the question is, would I bear the responsibility if I did anyway?
Mm-hmm.
I guess so, but I just don't think that situation is ever. I think part of the idea of free speech is that you don't know. So
can I ask you? So, I've been dealing with like weirdo pedophiles on Discord for a very long time. Right? Like I haven't reported them to the police because they're like going after minors on my server, shit like that, right? And
bless you, Dooby.
I do what I can. Okay.
I know you do.
A while back, I think it was like a couple years ago, I became aware of a book, right? It was like a guidebook, right? That a couple of them were like passing around. Or like had, and it was like it's just like instructions for how to like groom a child, basically, right? And you know, here's what you should do. Here's how to talk to them. Here's how to make them feel comfortable. So it was beyond just like erotica about like children. It was like instructions or advocacy that encourage people to go out and do this thing.
Yeah.
Right? So is there a line there for you? Like, they're not just like talking about something like some concept. They're saying that someone should go out and do this thing. You know, they're actively advocating for it.
A great real world example. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's wrong. I think it should be protected speech legally, but I would say that is over the line of like, I'm against that.
I don't even think that should be protected legally. That seems like to get into the area of like incitement.
Like, I don't think so. I don't think you can have.
Go ahead.
I don't think you can have broad incitement like that. Well, it's not protected legally. If you think that free speech should be restricted so that it is, Oh, sorry, it is protected legally. If you think it shouldn't be, then I understand that. But right now, I think you could make a book called How to Groom a Child. I don't know anybody will sell it, but it's not a crime to write it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying. Yeah, I wasn't saying descriptively. I was saying prescriptively. It should be illegal. Like that sounds like incitement, and it's not about child. I just think anything leading towards, like anything that either directly tells people to perform like something we would consider a harmful illegal action.
What about? I think most rap music could fall in. Most gangster rap could fall into. This is an instruction manual for XYZ. There's tons of rap songs that are like.
What example?
I don't know. There's a lot of 50 Cent songs where he's talking about like how to kill someone's connect so that to price manipulation of street drugs or how to load guns, how to do a drive-by, how to it's a lot of kind of
one thing that you brought up earlier was like the tension between why you might want to say something, right? I asked you like if there was a magic sentence you could speak and it would cause this negative effect. Your first question was, well, why would I want to speak that? And I think what you're ultimately talking about is like the potential moral good that might be on the other side of something. So in regards to like rap music,
and freedom,
you might make the argument that like, yes, it may cause negative effects, but also it might cause a lot of good effects. You have to weigh those sorts of things. Maybe that's
so
what
what is the good effect of 50 Cent telling us how to cook crack?
I'm not exactly sure. I don't know the specific song. I'd have to see
That's what I'm asking. Yeah.
April, you bring up something that I think is important.
I think Cake, the Mob,
something that I asked
Mob
you
Deep
directly,
song, he describes how to cook crack.
What'd you say?
I think in Cake, the Mob Deep song, he describes how to cook crack.
Let me go see.
No, but we can look it up. April, you brought up something that kind of ties back to what I asked you earlier, which is like I believe, let me just like posit what I believe and then I'll ask you directly. It's like I believe that all outcomes are possible with speech, which is why I'm more concerned about like this question. How do we alleviate the circumstances that lead to bad outcomes? Right? So even if I were
it's Lloyd Banks, not Mobb Deep.
Even if I were to say that there was a type of music that incites some type of reaction, I believe that any outcome is possible. Like we saw that example with Woodstock 99. That music clearly had a role in not only the incitement of the crowd, but the incitement of a bad outcome. And then the question is, like, how do we alleviate those circumstances? So I guess in terms of like, let's say hypothetically speaking, there was a rapper who was explicit about these very things that we believe to exist in rap music. Then the question I think would be, and I'll ask you this, like, how do we alleviate, well, what are the bad outcomes with that music? And then how do we alleviate the circumstances that could lead to those bad outcomes?
So personally, I would say that in regards to a lot of music, there can't be a policy of explicit censorship to controversial music because it's so hard to prove that there would be bad outcomes and that there are like no real good outcomes. And we don't necessarily want to vest power in the government or in private institutions to, personally, I think, to censor that kind of speech. Because ultimately, we can't be sure that when the government censors speech, they're going to do it in our interest, right? So personally, I would say that as a rule, the government should be very conservative at the very least when it comes to censoring, especially artistic endeavors, because it's so hard to tell in the moment, like whether or not something is going to be, explicitly good or bad, what their outcomes are going to be. So
okay, I found the song. It's Creep by Mobb Deep. I was getting like songs mixed up. Yeah, cock that, aim that, squeeze that, shoot the steel, Cadillac, Coupe de Ville, wood grain on the wheel, cocaine in the pot, baking soda water hot. When the ice cube drop, look at that. That's crack. Do we really need 50 Cent teaching us how to make crack?
Insightful.
April, I don't think you're addressing what I'm saying.
I'm addressing, don't worry.
I'm in agreement with you.
What's the benefit
I'm in
of that?
agreement with you, by the way. But one of the things I'm particularly talking about is, like, we understand, I guess we're both in agreement, that the government shouldn't overtly target the bad outcomes, because that's going to lead to different levels of limitation. But maybe there's a way, and then we can maybe go back and forth on this. Maybe there's a way that the government can work towards alleviating the circumstances that could lead to those outcomes. For example, if we believe that, I'll give like one example, and then maybe this will like help really encapsulate what I'm talking about, because obviously there's people watching and apparently they'll think I'm pedantic. But like under the COVID-19 landscape that we're dealing with, there is a lot of parents who are very adamant and aggressive about going to school board meetings, going to the school officials, not only to defy whether it be mask mandates or different types of social distancing guidelines, but also to go to the political institutions, in this case school boards, to directly protest these things. And that, I think, is a bad outcome, because what ends up happening, what has happened, is that parents are getting arrested, people are getting assaulted, death threats are getting sent to government officials, and these are all things that we don't want. So for me, alleviating a circumstance is trying to dissect and really dissect what is going on, like what is the actual thing that parents,
Oh yeah, I'm freaking out. I can't handle this anymore.
politicians,
I think
and
I'm gonna have to leave early.
in mask
If
mandates.
Prime
How do we
can't
alleviate
get
those
this under
concerns
control, I can't handle
as
this
it
shit.
pertains to masks? Does that make sense?
In this very specific
I think this is my last
scenario,
panel.
I'm not a fan of mask mandates. I don't think
Unless
there's a lot of good evidence to
like
suggest
the
that they're
panel is like
effective.
me, Ben
Especially just
Shapiro,
because, like,
Jordan Peterson,
you're
and
not
50
mandating
Cent.
people
I'll
use
do that
KN
panel, but
N95s
I
or
can't handle this anymore.
N95 masks.
I might maybe
So,
I'll start
as
a
long as people
panel.
are allowed to
I
use
could see
like
myself doing
cloth
that, but
masks
like,
or to reuse
God
the same mask over and over,
damn,
it's not really going to be an effective
I
mandate.
can't do this
And so I
anymore.
think people are like quite legitimate in protesting these things.
This is a regular
But
panel. I know. That's why I
if we're
don't want to do
talking
any more
about, like,
panels. That's why I'm saying
sending
this, because
death
I know
threats
this
to
is very
people,
normal.
obviously
Panels are
that's, like,
awful.
not
Yeah, I
good.
can't.
Or causing
Well,
like
that's an outcome.
Is it too many
right?
people?
So I'm talking
Right.
No,
specifically
I
about,
don't think so.
circumstance alleviation. But yeah, sorry, not to cut you off.
I've
So,
had
like, the
I've had
question is,
okay
like,
panels with 5
how
people.
do we prevent people from like sending death threats
Yeah, if I was
when
moderating,
they're upset about things?
I should host
I'm
some
not
panels.
sure.
I have
wish I
outgrown
had an
panels.
answer.
Yeah,
'Cause I feel like
maybe
if I
have.
had an answer to that question, like some silver bullet,
Oh,
to
I
make people,
agreed.
like,
See, the thing is, I keep
discuss their
agreeing to do
ideas more
stuff, and then
civilly,
by the time
I would
it's time,
absolutely
I agreed to
implement
this
it.
like 9 days ago.
But I'm not sure. That seems
9
like a
days
difficult
ago, I
question.
was nobody.
The broad, like, lame answer is that, like,
Now I've outgrown
well,
panels.
we should encourage a culture of communication.
People would die
and
to
a
be on your
culture of
panel.
people
Yeah, it's true.
being okay with
Okay.
disagreement to some extent.
Hey,
and
Gambit,
a
if you're on with
culture of
Jordan
people
Peterson and don't invite me, I'll
being,
take that. I know you have a fucking
aggressive
hard on for
partisanship
Jordan
and
Peterson.
tribalism
Don't worry, I'll invite
as
you.
a negative to avoid.
You'll get to meet
That's
your
like
daddy.
the lame answer, because it's like, okay, well, obviously that'd be good. But as far
Actually,
as like a
I'm doing
specific
a
policy
AMA with
implementation
Dooby,
that would
with Dooby's
prevent
Discord.
people from taking their political disagreements.
I'm gonna turn this down. I'm doing an AMA with Dooby's Discord tomorrow, and I will be streaming it.
Attacking people.
So it should be pretty cool.
Sure what, like, the silver bullet would be.
I'm trying to take over the panel. Do my own or none. Yeah, okay. You need to do like one a month or find topics you truly enjoy to talk about. I do enjoy this topic to talk about, but we're not talking about it. Nobody wants to actually talk about the topic. Do your own panel and be the moderator or have Destiny moderate. Oh yeah, I'll just have Destiny moderate. I mean, if he wants to, he's more than welcome to. Would you say you've outpaced panels intellectually? Yeah, I would. DM me to start a panel on Odyssey. Let's do something exclusive. No, I think I'll do the panel here. Or YouTube. Not being able to stay on topic is annoying. Yeah, Prime is not too strict with the moderation. Too many opinions and a moderator letting people pivot too hard. Yeah, he's got a fucking... Man, if I were the moderator, I would be fucking laying down the hammer. I'd be smashing people into fucking dust. I want to bring up Kyle Rittenhouse. I feel like that's a misinformation fountain. Going to end up like Killstream ended, yeah. What time is the AMA? Wait, I gotta... Dooby, there's no one's here to help you. You can raise your hand. No one's gonna save you. You could put your frog hand down. It's never gonna stop.
But I'm actually a very nice person. But Joe, you're boring as fuck right now. You're way off topic. We're down that rabbit hole for like the 5th time. Please, let's try to stay on topic. Okay, we don't need to talk about mask mandates or how to keep the parents happy. Or
This is a mutiny.
We're talking about censorship and the responsibility people have to.
The AMA with Dooby's Discord is tomorrow at 9 Eastern. Tomorrow at 9 Eastern.
With how we make parents feel good about what the schools are teaching. Right?
No, because the question is, how do we mitigate the negative effects of?
Okay. Well, if Destiny wants to moderate, I'll
How do we mitigate those effects?
What if it's something they should get riled up about?
I'll let him know.
Lewis is saying that one thing.
Pivot to January 6th and defend Trump. Well, I think what Trump did on January 6th was pretty... See, Trump's the president. I feel like we have to have a different standard of responsibility for people's actions when you're the fucking president.
You hearing them out about their concerns about CRT, but then teaching the CRT anyway, or hearing them out about the mask mandates, but then doing the mask mandate anyway is going to make them feel any better. No, the way that you stop that, right, is you actually, like us, don't do the thing that they don't want you to do. That's how you do it. Right, but if we're not willing to do that, then we need to acknowledge that we're not willing to do that thing, even after hearing them out and wasting the fucking time for hours, right? That we're having these meetings. We need to acknowledge, hey, you're going to come in here, you're going to talk at us. We're going to acknowledge that you talked at us, and we're going to do what we want to do anyway, because fuck you, right? That's not really helping anybody. I think that's not really dealing with the topic at hand, which is what responsibility do people have for the speech and the damage that the speech can do.
All right, Bam.
Right. Yeah. What damage does the speech have to posit the idea that you should not get a vaccination to go to schools?
Did I look up that 50 Cent lyric for nothing?
No, I did want to address it, actually.
Okay,
I was just trying to cut off there.
Okay.
They're like...
you just have to jump in. It's never going to stop.
Yeah, we can.
Well, I mean... no, it's fine.
You can table it for later, April.
I didn't want to, because I don't want to feel like I can't acknowledge it directly. Like, it's not actually like if you look at the song itself, the song isn't like glorifying and telling people to do that. If anything, it's the exact opposite. Like the song is about how awful the conditions are in these communities and how you shouldn't want to be here. It's like literally, what's a few other lyrics? Because I didn't even realize I remember the song until I started looking at it. Don't go and get comfortable. Don't know what he told you. It ain't sweet around here, and I don't care what he told you. Ain't sweet around here.
That's Lloyd Banks.
Yes, but I'm saying it's a part of the same song. They're both the concept they're dealing with. It like you have to be really rough and tumble to exist in the neighborhoods and communities that they're talking about.
Okay, so you're saying that 50 Cent does not glorify his drug dealing days and his music.
50 Cent, all 50 Cent talking about now is how much money he has. Like literally,
I'm not talking about now. I'm talking about when the song came out.
Yeah, 50 Cent was shot 9 times. No, it's not like I don't think it's something he's proud of. I think it's something that it's a descriptive reality.
This is the same song.
And he's
clip filled till the tip. Stunt. I get on some shit. Different day, different bitch. Old hoodie, new kicks. Oldsmobile, right, fuck that. No rim, hubcaps. Keep my eyes open. Well, I can't say this line, but.
Yeah,
if we're on YouTube, I would say
under this overall idea of how distraught and bad the situation these people are coming from, and this is what they've done to survive it.
Wait, but I don't.
Different day, different bitch. Old hoodie, new kicks. I don't think he's talking about how bad things are there. Okay, so you're saying so if 50 Cent came out and he was like, yeah, I was glorifying crack dealing, you'd be like, well, then I think that should be banned. Like, no, you don't think that.
And I think we're not acting like it's just rap music.
Does this?
I brought up rap music. I brought up rap music because I had an inkling that you'd be more likely to defend rap music than you would be to defend Lolita. And you are. And now you're whataboutisming it. But my point is that if 50 well, okay, I'm asking you directly. If 50 Cent said, yes, I made this song because I want people to deal drugs. I want them to kill people. I want them to make crack. And that's what. Do you think it should be illegal? Do you think the cops should come and be like?
I think that would be considered incitement if that's your intention.
So even if it was the same song, you're saying that 50 Cent 20 years
Because
later,
I'm
if he
disagreeing
came
with
out and he
their
said, I know, I'm saying if 50 Cent came out and said, that song Creep, yeah, I made that because I want people to deal drugs. Do you think the police should come and be like, well, Mr. Cent, you're under arrest for the crime of incitement?
Well, just because a lot of things are illegal doesn't mean a response to something illegal is always arrest. Speeding is illegal, but that doesn't
Okay,
mean
you,
every
you think he
speeding
should
is
get it?
okay.
Do you think he should get a ticket?
I'm saying that if we know that if you're
Yes,
doing
if
something
the
to incite violence,
if the hypothetical I said, you're not. It's a yes or no question. It's a yes. It's a yes or no question. If
No,
50 Cent said,
only dumb people say it's a yes or no question. Only dumb people.
okay,
say
then
that
I'm
because
dumb.
They don't want.
I'm dumb, and I'm inviting you to be dumb with me. If 50 Cent came out,
I'm not.
that's
I'm
fine.
Not calling, I'm not,
okay, there's
I guess
three
I am calling you
answers.
dumb.
There's
I'm
three.
not
There's
gonna run
yes,
from that.
no, and you're too smart to answer this question. And if you want to choose that one, that's fine. If 50 Cent
not-
said unequivocally, I made that song Creep because I want people to deal drugs, smack bitches, and
already
shoot
answered this.
people.
I already
Yes or
answered
no?
this, and
Do
I'm
you
trying
think? Do you think he should get a ticket or any other punishment from the government?
Yes, there should be
or-
punishment if you're inciting violence. Yes. But that's not. But you see how that's useless because we have no context involved with that. But that's what you wanted. You wanted a
The hypothetical
Context
gave you
need
the
to shove into
context.
that to like explain your answer.
The hypothetical
again,
gave you the
Because
context.
because all that's going to do is you're going to plot some other example, and you're going to say, well, why doesn't it some other like example that's
No,
has some
I'm
key
actually
difference?
just finding out how
Hold on one
fucking
second. Let me
crazy
just
you
say,
are.
because
I don't have
hold on
any
one
other.
second.
I don't.
Hold on
It's
one
not a
second.
trap.
I'm not talking,
It's not
I'm not
a.
talking
It's not a
to you.
trap.
I'm saying I'm
It's
addressing
not a
Dooby right
trap.
now because Dooby said why is context necessary?
Dooby knows
Context
it's
is
not a trap.
necessary
It's
because
not necessary. Context is boring.
Okay, well, I'm sorry. Context is necessary, Dooby.
Oh,
because whenever you just say a yes or no to something,
Christ.
someone can throw out another example, and then you might have a different answer, and they're not going to know what the distinction is. But when you use context, you can isolate what the distinctions are, what the specific criteria are that can make one situation different from another.
I think you will. I think this policy that you're supporting will disproportionately affect black people.
It won't.
It will.
But it probably will.
But it won't.
Black
Can I
people.
ask you a question?
Oh, black
But you're
people
saying
glorify violence and crime in their art more than anybody else that I can think of. Any other
Where do you
race?
see
Any other
glorification?
race that I can
I
think
don't-
of.
Wait, hold on. So gang activity, drug use, drug selling, like that's just glorified all the time in
It's
gangster rap.
all.
Not
in
even just
music.
gangster rap, like just
Reggae.
rap
And
in
movies.
general.
People who say gangster rap is so weird. Like gangster rap isn't even like
Okay,
a
if you want to
popular
pretend that
rap
gangster
motto
rap
in
isn't
2020.
like a rap
Damn.
genre, we can pretend it's not. Okay,
We're not Ice-T in the 80s. Gangster rap is not even like a genre.
But
Okay, well-
you think Ice-T in the 80s, especially at the height of the drug epidemic, where a lot of these the communities were dealing with like gangs and drug dealers tearing their communities apart. You think that Ice-T making music glorifying that
should
shit back
be
then,
illegal.
he probably should have been arrested or put in prison or something, right? Or
Bam.
some kind of legal
No,
consequence.
Bam,
That's some kind of
you
legal
are a
consequence for
Karen.
this.
You're a Karen.
What responsibility does the label have to that for putting that out? If they
You,
know
you,
that
you,
this-
these are Karen policies that you are advocating
No one
for.
believes that
Yeah,
rap
like-
art should be censored in this way.
Wait,
Yeah.
but Bam
Right?
just said that he does. He just
But
said
I
that there
said
should be
that-
some
No.
kind of
No,
consequence.
I didn't. I said
He
nothing
said
about.
that in the scenario where you could explicitly prove that the rapper
Yes.
released the song with the intention to harm people,
Because he said it.
and it did harm people, and you can draw a one-to-one comparison.
No.
Then
You know,
it would be
not
justified.
and it did
Talking about
harm people. That
inciting.
was not the hypothetical. The hypothetical
No,
was he said he did it for the purpose of getting people to smack bitches and cook crack and shoot people. And Bam said, yes, that should be a crime, and that is a Karen stance.
Okay.
You see
Well,
how
I think
now we have no
Bam.
context.
if it
Yeah.
was strongman Bam's position,
Well,
I
it
think you
wouldn't
would
need to be
also
strongman if I
add
could have
the
added context.
qualification that you must be able to prove that there was actually a real crime that was directly inspired by that.
That is
intention.
not the question I asked him. That's just a
I know,
different
but I think
hypothetical
that's
that
what
would
he
make his
was-
answer make more sense. But that's not what he said. I wanted to
No,
drill
you
down.
wouldn't let me say anything. That's the point. You only said a yes or a no because you said you didn't want context, and I'm showing you how stupid
That's
that was.
adding extra shit to the hypothetical to change it is not
It's not
context.
adding.
It's my hypothetical.
Yeah,
It's my world
Okay.
that you're
Yeah.
living in when you're answering this question. So I can make up whatever I want, and then if you're going along with the hypothetical, you just have to answer.
Yeah, Bam, can you readdress the hypothetical but understanding that the hypothetical did not include an actual harm perpetrated by someone. It's just in the hypothetical, he said that it was intended to cause people to smack bitches and deal drugs and so on.
Yeah.
Do you think
I think there should still be consequences. Yes, I don't think that punishment is prison. I think that like
yes, legal. Okay, great. That was the question. Do you think there should be any legal consequences? And you said yes. Yes, the answer is yes.
Okay.
April, he said yes. He said yes to me.
We're not any more closer.
We know you want consequences. You want legal consequences.
April didn't. April, your answer is so insane that April couldn't believe it. So we had to get you to say it again, just so April could wrap her mind around what you're saying.
That song isn't played on radio, and you would say, "Oh, that doesn't count as legal consequences," but you don't know that because I'm not allowed to give you context.
That's censorship. That's a legal consequence.
Bam, can I pick your brain on something?
Oh.
Yeah, you're familiar with Woodstock 99, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, in the context of Woodstock 99, Limp Bizkit was explicitly told to stop for the crowd to calm down. In that, he chose not to do that and played break stuff right after he was told that. And it's on film. So do you think that Limp Bizkit is responsible for the actions that happened during his set, or during their set, I should say?
Yeah, he has a level of responsibility, and
Okay.
I think it would be dishonest to say like it has nothing to do with him. Like obviously he plays a part in it, but that, like I said, the responsibility, the response should be also like the punishment should fit the crime. Again, it doesn't mean anyone's thrown in prison. It doesn't mean anyone's like, yeah.
What do you mean?
Sure.
What do you mean? No, go ahead, Jeff.
Oh, now you want context? No, I'm not giving you context
the
now.
punishment should fit the crime. Like, if
You
there's
don't
a
deserve
riot,
context.
Like, what punishment fits a crime of like inciting a riot? Like,
Dooby doesn't want context.
multiple women,
probably
multiple
prison
women,
time. Honestly,
I mean, multiple women at Woodstock 99 were sexually assaulted, some of which have never even got their cases resolved. There are multiple examples of acts at the event facilitating that very behavior. And it took a lot of people to convince acts to say like, hey, like you have to tone down what you're saying when you're on stage talking to the crowd. The reason why I brought up the Olympistic example is because I think that might be the clearest example that comes to mind, at least for me, about like where I think artists do have a level of responsibility for the actions that they do. Like when you are on a stage,
too, with like
I mean they were charged for inciting a riot. I think it was at Madison Square, like, and they got can't, and I think it even got like cut short. Like it's very clear that like the actions and again like some companies do different things, right? Obviously we're like dealing with Travis Scott right now and his responsibility for what happened at his event. So like I think we're all in agreement that artists do have a level of responsibility, especially if you can reasonably assume that their actions led to whatever harm you might deem intolerable, and like in terms of Woodstock 99, sexual assault, and people literally dying, or even the Travis Scott situation of people literally dying, where I think we understand that artists do have responsibility for the label and what they say.
So if that's the case, like why not extend that a little further? So there are lots of artists who glorify not just drug dealing, but drug use.
The glorifying isn't necessarily incitement.
Hold on, violence. They glorify like the gang that they happen to be in, the set that they happen to be part of, right? And I think you could probably find some connection.
I've given the distinction before you even finish this question. It's not incitement.
Just don't interrupt. Control your impulses.
Do it anyways.
Control your impulses for like 10 more seconds. It's okay. Right. So you could probably find some connection, right? We could probably find some connection between young people who get into that lifestyle and listening to that music that glorifies this lifestyle they end up getting into, right? So if you could find that connection, right, and we could demonstrate, right, that the creation of this music, right, with these messages is leading to more people thinking that it's cool to be in a gang and leading to more of these people getting into the gang lifestyle, and with all the bad things that happens to people that get into that. Should we then just ban the music?
Number one, this doesn't happen. Number two,
I don't think that's
glorification.
true. I don't think you could just say
isn't
just flat
incitement.
out it doesn't happen. That's,
Well,
sounds like bullshit. It's like, I know that's bullshit. I think you know
I'm
that's
not calling
bullshit.
BS because I specifically.
Wait, hold on. I forgot. You're the guy who thinks that gangs don't wear like gang colors. So yeah, I forgot.
Yeah, you think that, like I said, you're the guy that thinks that life works like GTA.
I'm the guy who understands that. Yeah, the Bloods and the Crips have gang colors. Lots of gangs have colors that they wear. Yeah.
Yes, that's not. Again, this isn't the reality of 2022. This isn't how you identify.
I feel great.
I don't think you know what the fuck you're talking about.
Hold on, control your impulse.
Given that you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, I'm not.
Control your impulse.
I am controlling my impulse. I recognize
control yourself, man.
And I'd like to confront you that you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And that's what makes this totally illogical answer you're about to give us make sense because you just don't know what you're talking about. So it's fine.
Can I ask a question?
Hold on. I want to answer his question. It's a very dumb and correct question. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen because music responds to culture. Like culture doesn't necessarily, it doesn't work the other way around. Culture doesn't respond to music. Like people are going to, especially rap in particular, is a very it comes out of a for the people. It was it was started as an anti-establishment brand, speaking to people, talking about the conditions that they come from. So rap music isn't like what's putting people in these positions. People are in these positions and they're talking about the things that they experience. But even if I granted you your point, even like I said, I disagree with. Even if I granted you the point that it was that it happened to lead to whatever consequences you said were happening, glorification is an incitement, and cool. Now you can ask me.
So to be clear, when you say that music doesn't respond to culture, or music responds to culture doesn't like make the culture, or whatever.
Yeah.
So you're telling me that all those emo kids that were walking around doing emo shit, in the 90s and early 2000s, right, listening to emo music, right, that with emo bands that dress a certain way, did certain things to let everybody know how emo they are. Telling me the kids that started doing that after listening to this music, becoming fans of this band, that this was just like inherent in them. They didn't like respond to the music and start doing the thing because the artists were doing it and they thought it was cool, so they wanted to look like the artists.
I don't know if that's really culture, but the feeling was already there.
But
the feeling to like wear black makeup and paint your nails black and wear like fucking thick bracelets, that was like inherent in them, and they heard the music and it awakened it or some shit, right? Like, you know how stupid that sounds? Like, come on.
But I don't know, Dooby. Would you hold the same level of scrutiny to Linkin Park? Do you think that Linkin Park overtly? Okay.
I'd hold it to every group, right? But so I think that music definitely influences people to behave in certain ways, right?
I want to make sure you understand. I want to make sure you're like addressing my point directly. So, do you think that Linkin Park is responsible for the inclination and the increases of teen suicides in the United States in the 2000s?
Probably. Yeah, there are probably some kids who listen to. Well, I don't know if like Linkin Park.
Crawling in my skin, these wounds they will not heal.
Yeah, but most Linkin Park's music is not like that, right? Most of Linkin Park's music isn't that. But that song specifically, yeah, I'm sure there was like some teenage girl out there, some teenage boy who was just really depressed about what's going on in their life. And they listened to the song about how it's never going to get.
It's not just that.
About how it's never. Please, and they listen to the song about how it's never going to get any better. And yeah, it just pushes them deeper into this hole because they fully identify with that feeling and they decide to kill themselves. Yeah, I'm sure that's the thing. Actually, there's a really famous song called the Hungarian Suicide Song. Beautiful song. It's one of the most beautiful songs I've ever heard in my life. Just like everything about it is beautiful. The lyrics are beautiful, the melody is beautiful, but it's actually banned in a lot of countries because for a long time, when people committed suicide, they were listening to that song. That song was playing on the record player, right? So they ended up banning it in a lot of countries. So I would say that they are somewhat responsible, and that the media, the thing that they created, maybe like fostered an environment or created an environment that pushed people deeper into this pit that they're in, and lets them committing suicide. Now, would I say that they're like fully responsible for the suicide and they should be like put in prison or something? No, right? But I think we need to acknowledge that there is some responsibility there, right? That the things you put out into the world don't just like go nowhere and have zero impact. They do impact people, right, in very serious ways. But what I'm saying is like acknowledging that BAM seems to think that there might be some level at which we should like give people legal consequences for that fact. I don't know if I agree with that. And I think Mr. Girl's perspective is like just no legal consequences. Right?
What if there was like a
Oh no, I
pedophile rap,
specifically was talking about
pedophile rap
incitement.
song
You
that,
apply.
I
that
have
made
a
people into
question. So
pedophiles?
if you could look at like the riots that occurred with Black Lives Matter, and you could look at political pundits and talk and show that they're lying about, say, Breonna Taylor, saying that she was shot in her bed, or they're lying
Yeah,
about like Kyle Rittenhouse, and they're saying that
yeah,
he
Yeah.
shot Black people.
yeah.
Does that count like as incitement when you then look at like the millions of dollars in property damage or the people that were killed?
Well,
Absolutely.
April, this is where I think misinformation and disinformation is important, because like if I believe that misinformation is false and inaccurate information with varying degrees of intentionality, and disinformation is false and accurate information explicitly intended to mislead, if you can prove that these sentiments that these politicians and otherwise explicitly were trying to mislead the public, then I think you have like an argument there. But I think it's hard to discern.
I don't know.
If people were,
I think that even if you're not intentionally doing it, if you're like a politician or if you're a leader, I think you have a responsibility to know what the fuck you're talking about if you're going to start.
politicians lie all the time, though.
Absolutely, they shouldn't
like,
lie. But I'm saying even if you think you're telling the truth about the Breonna Taylor killing and you say some shit that's not true and it makes people riot, I do think you, as a leader, bear some, I don't know, legal responsibility, but political at least. I think that should be at least
think
worth
from my
a censure,
perspective,
maybe an impeachment.
it seems like left-wing misinformation causes like an enormous amount of destructive harm. Yet
So does
this
the
panel
right.
was like
It's not-
started with the premise that like conservative misinformation is overwhelmingly or
Yeah,
just like tends to
I
be
was-
more destructive.
I agree with you.
Well-
I consider myself, pretty left leaning, but the Kyle Rittenhouse shit was insane. Like you can't 99% of liberals, you cannot have a conversation with them about Kyle Rittenhouse without them saying something completely fucking batshit insane or untrue.
It appears to me that the only examples that people posit in terms of misinformation when it comes to the left seems to be specifically within Black Lives Matter and within the sentiments of just broader civil rights in the United States. Is there another example, April, that you have of like overt misinformation of the left that's not Black Lives
There's
Matter?
a subreddit that exists right now on
But
Reddit
I'm asking, okay.
called Herman
Sorry.
Cain Award. And it basically celebrates the death of people who died from COVID if they were anti-maskers or anti-vaxxers. I mean, the idea that like mask mandates are this like super effective thing is just not premised on any like real information, especially when it comes to cloth masks. Like whether or not someone died from COVID has like almost no bearing on whether or not they wore like some dirty cloth mask into their grocery store.
To be
don't know.
fair, the
April,
Herman
I'm
Cain
confused.
Awards isn't just about people wearing mask mandates. It's like people saying that they are anti-vax. They're not going to get the vax, right? Like, and being proud about anti-vax, encouraging other people to be anti-vax, and then dying from the pandemic. So that's.
I mean, another one would be like how liberals went on about Russiagate, right, with Trump, and continually pushed the narrative that there was like collusion. This is happening on like mainstream news media outlets.
I don't think that
we
one's
could like
fair.
run
Like
down
a
the list.
full
It
FBI.
happens with basically every issue.
I think
is
if
gonna
the
get
president of the
politicized.
United States is being investigated by the FBI for possible coordination with a foreign power, that is a super important, relevant news story. I don't think that reporting on that is pushing a narrative.
Reporting
well,
on
I'll-
it is not a problem, but reporting
Okay.
on it as if it's already true is a problem.
Who did that?
I mean, I think you can look at like these.
Just show
I
me
don't
one
know
article.
exactly what they're called, like talk show hosts, right?
Like-
who are not necessarily the
The
most politically
infotainment
informed,
people.
but they're making jokes about how like as if it's already a done deal. I think that's
Yes,
problematic.
I think that's fair. I think that I think it's a big problem that CNN has those infotainment in between Anderson Cooper. 1 second he's making jokes and giving his opinion. Another second he's reporting. I agree that is extremely problematic.
April,
or
why
calling
don't you?
like ivermectin horse medicine, right? In regards to Joe Rogan, ivermectin is medicine for humans. it's been given
Yeah.
to millions of people worldwide, right? So
Yeah.
to call it like horse medicine and to like denounce it as this crazy thing, that's misinformation.
Well,
You're actively
Sure.
engaging in
but
like assassination of someone's character.
but it's
Hold on,
it's
but
also
that-
not generally like it hasn't it doesn't have
No,
like when
it's-
people are look. No, I'm not saying that I'm not saying that humans can't use it for things, but I'm saying in relationship to like COVID-19, there's no information showing it to have positive effects, and people are using the horse methods and variation.
I mean,
Like
the
people-
only
That's true.
an
Although
example
Joe
that
Rogan
comes
wasn't, but
an example that comes to mind of like actual disinformation, like within the left, I think Rachel Maddow is the best example when she overtly advertised that she had Donald Trump's tax returns, and then had that story, built up that story, propagated that story, and then we found out that, like, well, sure, you have a tax return, but you don't have the embodiment of what people on the left were asking for when they were asking for Donald Trump's tax returns. I think it's a better example.
also a good example.
Okay,
and
so,
I also think that
so
like
if you guys are,
wait, she hold on, she brought up BLM. This is the last thing. I know you can go. I think that the Kyle Rittenhouse situation was to like I was actually a big, well, it sounds super cringe. I was a big, I fought against the Kyle Rittenhouse narrative. I think that a lot of the way that was handled was generally really irresponsible. But more directly to the Breonna Taylor case, as far as like saying that misinformation led to a level of violence and destruction, I'm going to accept that some portion of that was true. But do you believe that the change in details would have made BLM feel dramatically different about the outcome
Yeah.
of the situation?
I mean, the original
the
story was that
narrative
she was being shot and she was shot in her bed. when she was-
I'm saying, do you think that even the proper narrative, like, do you think that the people who were protesting for Black Lives Matter still wouldn't have had a problem? I'm not saying if you think
they
it's okay.
might have an issue, but they wouldn't think that police were marching into somebody's house and shooting her in her bed while she's asleep, or executing
Right.
Michael Brown in the middle of the street.
Remember how it's not.
In
Remember how that's not the
reality,
question I
her
asked.
boyfriend is firing shots. So I think the difference between
Well,
the actual narrative, which is like
still
knocks
pretty effed
come to
up.
the door, announce themselves, even though they aren't required to by law, and they're shot at, versus the narrative that was I heard, right, initially, was that this woman was shot in her bed, just, because cops broke down the door and
I think
are
you just get a
violent,
misinformation.
bloodthirsty people, right? I think that kind of misinformation is really dangerous, and
I think
that
what
is
you
what
just did
causes
was
violence.
misinformation.
Oh,
No,
okay,
that's not.
elaborate.
That's not
yeah,
true. What about what
because-
you said was misinformation?
Because you confirmed what you said to be like a hard truth. The reality is, I think there was no confirmation of them knocking and announcing.
Yeah.
They said as much. There's
They
no
said
like,
they did some. Yeah. There's a split.
Neighbors
No,
are like,
no one can really agree or
that's
prove
at best mixed.
whether they announce themselves. That's true.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so there's like some people dispute that,
And
but they say that they did.
But I'm saying that I think that's a really key thing to be acknowledged as far as like information, and the second factor being like them, the idea of him like just shooting, like his response, particularly being him shooting in response to like someone breaking into his house.
But April,
And
that's
part of this is like
important,
is trust and authority, right? I mean, the cops say that they did this, right? But we have a long history now, like over just the past like 10 years of these videos of cops saying one thing. We see a video and they're fucking lying, right? They prove themselves to be absolute goddamn liars. So you're saying, well, yeah, the cops said this, and I don't think you're going hard on this, April, but like the cops said that they announced themselves. Other people said they didn't. Like, are we going to believe the authorities because they are the authorities?
Wait, but one of the people. So this was happening in the middle of the night, by the way, right? So lots of people in the building would have been asleep, for the first shout outs if they did happen. But the guy who was there when the cops got there, he said they did announce themselves once. They knocked more than once. The boyfriend acknowledges that they heard knocking right when they were in bed. So we have acknowledgement they were knocking. The guy that was awake that we know was awake the entire time and was in the hallway, saw the cops coming. He says they did announce themselves once, but we also know that they didn't need to announce themselves because this was like a no-knock warrant, if I remember correctly. So they actually did more than they legally had to do. right? So that narrative, I think, is a lot
I
friendlier,
don't know. Is
or
that
a lot
what
more,
you said
a
even
lot
true? I think
less.
you just lied
Yes,
again.
Google it.
The
Google it. While I'm
boyfriend
talking.
acknowledged that he heard them knock. I think
Sure,
you
Yes.
just
the
lied.
boyfriend did, but
Yes.
there are other
Wait, hold
witnesses.
on. Wait, this is why he got his gun, right? Because he
Guys,
heard
can I
banging, he heard banging at the
suggest
door.
that I think
No,
I
yeah,
think
people breaking this. You said that them knocking and announcing themselves like that.
okay,
I
hold
feel
on,
like
hold
no,
on.
you're
Isn't it
missing-
better if we only use examples where we
Sure.
all basically agree on what the facts are? I feel like this is going to turn into a binder
No,
fight,
this is-
and I don't like binder
Sure.
fights.
This is
Like,
this is bullshit. This isn't. It's important for this topic. Like we're
No,
talking
no.
about.
I think we
we're
should
talking about
we can all
specifically, you've cut me
agree.
off all night. I'm gonna power
Yes.
through on this one. Okay.
Okay,
So
go ahead.
we have spent this entire topic talking about how information can lead to certain outcomes that we don't like. So, Bam, directly, would you say a circumstance to alleviate this outcome could be police filing police reports and force reports to the best of their ability as soon as possible, probably within 24 hours of the incident?
absolutely.
Do you think? Okay. Does anybody disagree with that?
I think
No, that
that's
sounds like a
legitimate.
great idea.
Yeah, so that's an example that I was trying to make, and you guys continue to try to obfuscate this point that we have to start identifying circumstances that can alleviating circumstances. So the circumstance here in question is that it's very clear that the police documentation and the police reporting was shoddy at best. With that
Agreed.
led to
Absolutely.
multiple misinformation that April acknowledged that she did on this panel, that Bam clearly acknowledged. He debunked it and amended it, so he corrected narrative. And April, to the best of her ability, took it on the chin, kept the ball moving. Right, that's a good thing that happened in discourse. However, something that does happen, as we see with COVID-19, is that even being presented with misinformation and even disinformation, the debunking and the amending of this information, it doesn't work for a lot of individuals. And that's something that we.
So I gotta say,
try to-
so I don't think what April did was misinformation at all. I think
He just didn't use.
I think
context.
Bam, what you were doing was misinformation. But I agree with Mr. Girl. Maybe we shouldn't be using examples that where everybody doesn't agree about the circumstances.
Yeah, because then we got to fucking hash it out. Like, there's stuff
Yeah,
that we
that's
agree
fine.
generally it was just a lie, and
Sure.
in broad strokes, the Breonna Taylor story was not true, and then the Kyle Rittenhouse story was not true, and what
Right.
the truth is, I don't think matters that much. For our purposes, I just think acknowledging that there's a big difference.
Well, no. What the truth is,
Yeah.
the truth matters because we're under the assumption that if even in the fairest case scenario, because I'm not going to say best case scenario where the cop did everything right, it's specifically in the Breonna Taylor case because that wouldn't be true to know for sure did all these. But in the fairest case scenario of description of the case, I believe that people would still be justifiably upset. With how that
Absolutely, they're
situation
going to be
Yeah, some
upset. People can and should be upset either way. But I think that we agree that the truth is probably significantly less upsetting than the story we all first heard.
I don't know, someone who hasn't committed a crime dying in their house. I feel like it's
that
still
happened in
generally
both.
pretty
That
upsetting.
happened in both stories. In one of the stories, she had no relation to the person they were looking for and was lying in bed and got shot randomly by cops because she's black. And in the other story, she was sort of involved in the case, even though they already had the person in custody. And they did have a warrant for her house. It was not the wrong house, and she was not lying in bed. And the cops did not just shoot for. So whatever I'm sure you agree with parts of what I just said. So I'm just saying, if we can agree in broad strokes that the narrative that went around was more upsetting and probably went around. Incendiary. Then we can agree there was a break with reality, whatever that break might have been.
So if we can agree to that, and I think we can also agree that a lot of these media organizations and politicians, months later, when we had all the facts, right, we knew the original story was incorrect, they were still going around saying that she was murdered in bed, right? And with the Kyle Rittenhouse thing, I think there's a couple of newspapers that printed that this guy killed black people. Right? So those people Given that kind of misinformation, whether or not they intended to be misinformation, it could be that they're just fucking lazy, right? Given that kind of misinformation could incite or lead to riots or racial animosity between people, should there be consequences for them?
Yeah.
If you're releasing misinformation, I think that not like I said, intentionally bad misinformation. I think that's just that's bad on your job. Like there's consequences for that already.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I
I'm
mean,
not
should
talking
there
about
be
social
consequences?
Yeah, I think there
but
should
those
be
consequences should
political
come
and
from
possibly legal.
individuals.
I think if you are in the government, then and you're talking about this stuff, I don't think your speech should be protected there nearly as much as if you're not. So I think if you are lying from your position of authority, I don't know about legal consequences, but political consequences for sure. I think that should be
I addressed this with Prime's question about, but those people if you're in that level, if you're in that position, like
should
I can
probably
see
be removed
in that
from
case,
office.
people coming from your job. Well, not people coming for it, but you lose your job due to
I think that's
being irresponsible at your job.
Yeah.
Bam. The
I'm
push back a
confused.
little bit.
So,
What's weird to me is that like this happens all the time. It's just power. Like all we're talking about is just the ability to define phenomena and then make it act in a desired manner. That's all power is. And then the information is adjusted and used however way. It's just how like power leads to propaganda. And then within that propaganda, there's going to be omission of information all the time. Like every single politician does this for almost every single thing they do. But again, I think it's much more productive to like look at the circumstances and try to alleviate them, to lead to these things that we think are bad. Like generally speaking, propaganda is neutral. Like information that's used to promote a political cause or perspective, we do this all the time. We've done this on this panel. We all have different positions and we're trying to push our own propaganda, our own messaging. But at the end of the day, clearly, certain information can lead to misinformation or disinformation based on intent. Like that's kind of why I'm confused about your position, Bam. But we can hash it out at a different time.
No, that's good. Like, I agree with you. I don't have an issue with narratives, and I don't think that anytime someone releases something that like someone else decides like that doesn't feel contextually like all the way there. I don't think that the response is always going to be firing them. But I'm saying there has to be some threshold of like.
I don't understand anything Joe says either. I literally can't understand it. It's like he's not speaking English. It's
more or less decent,
weird.
at least as far as like national news. Like Fox News has commentators that can say things are incorrect all the time, but like their articles, their information section is generally as close to accurate as possible. And if you can point it out, like, and if you do find something that's like demonstrably incorrect, like they have some level of responsibility of changing that. But that's different from people commentating and like pinning, twisting narratives. Like I think
but then the tricky part is like, as we see, if you have politicians, and this is like and again, like I don't know where to start with this, is that when you have misinformation, especially when it's unintentional, where it's just like a piece of something that's generally inaccurate, but it's not at the level of scrutiny and they'd be like, wow, like I can't believe they're saying this. Sometimes that can morph in such a way that can lead to things that we deem undesirable. Like even with ivermectin, like we understand that there is an actual like information about
I would talk to
ivermectin
Jordan Peterson
towards individuals. And then there's also the truth about ivermectin
I would
as it
have a
pertains
fight
to
with
animals.
Tim Pool. I really don't like how he
true.
turns people
But
against
the
each other.
problem is that
that really bothers me.
That I guess
like
to your point,
he's doing the
way
exact
that mass
opposite of what I
media
want him
talks
to be
about
doing.
these things,
Or,
like they can again because it's all about power. Like
so I'm
however they
anti-his.
choose to navigate this phenomena, and however they see fit, they are going to in turn,
I always
based
just
on
thought
whatever
I'm
their
dumb as fuck
biases
for not
are,
understanding.
like
I mean, you can if you want to parse out what
whether
he's
it be
saying. I'm
intentional
sure
or
it makes
otherwise,
sense,
and
but like
that
I
is kinda
can't
weird.
fucking
I don't think
handle
there's
it.
a way
It's
to,
melting my brain.
clearly
Everything's
do
gonna
this,
be
but I
okay,
think
man.
at
Thank
the
you.
very
Yeah,
least,
please
companies should
stop.
have
Don't stop
some
going on
type of
panels. They
language
desperately need you to
around
stir shit up.
misinformation and disinformation. I think that's
I'm
perfect
gonna,
start.
sir. If I go the next panel I go on, I'm gonna be
I
moderating.
actually prefer mainstream media to,
No more panels that I can't
like,
just fucking
social media
control.
And all these, like, third-party
How deep are you in
media,
Cookie
because
Clicker?
they're-
I quit
I think
Cookie.
they're
I
held
quit
to a
Cookie
high
Clicker.
standard overall.
I'm free.
Even though they still suck sometimes.
I'm
So,
free of its power.
Don't believe that I picked Fox News because I'm trying to cook for them.
I was in the.
Yeah.
I think I was up to the
Yeah, I
quintillions, something like that.
I feel like
per
Your
second.
position's really inconsistent, to be honest.
Not,
Yeah, I love black
It
people.
seems like it is.
Of course.
not though. This is the world.
You know I
even
do.
Joe's position seems inconsistent. Because if you're saying that, hey,
we're allowed to be inconsistent about things. I don't think.
yeah,
we have any issue with that.
All right, guys. I have to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Okay.
we can table that.
Well, sure, no problem. I was just about to end this anyway. But to my audience, 1 second, please. To my audience, thank you all for being here. We will continue on for our open walk on panel. We're not done here, okay? We're going to continue on. We'll have another panel after this, right? Open walk on panel also members like you just sitting at home may participate, right? But before then, do me a favor, hit that follow button. If you haven't done so yet, hit that follow button right now. Make sure notifications are on so you know I'm going live. I do this 6 nights a week, right? Come to this channel, PrimeCayes, PrimeCayes, and hit that follow button because we're always providing you content. So we want to see you there. I'm going to give an outro to all my individual guests here. I'll start with Mr. Girl because he has to go first, right? Especially with social and chat also for our social media before I forget that. But Mr. Girl, thank you so much for coming through and being a part of this. Did you enjoy your time here?
Sort of. Some parts of it were pretty brutal.
Okay. All right. Oh,
I think there were some parts I liked, but some parts I just feel like I don't know what we're talking about. It drives me insane.
Okay then. All right.
But I appreciate you having me all the same. And
Absolutely. We're happy to have you.
April, it was good to meet you.
Likewise.
Joe,
sure.
Bam, good to meet you as well. And Dooby, I'll see you tomorrow.
You wanna check
Wait,
out-
no, not tomorrow. The day after tomorrow. The day after tomorrow. Monday.
Yeah.
Fuck.
And you've been
I think I
doing
told my
Twitch stream
chat.
for like a month, and you're missing days already. What the fuck's wrong with you?
I'm out.
Yeah, Monday.
He's
I'm losing it.
Monday,
Yeah.
Everyone wants to talk to him.
have a good time, okay?
Yeah.
I'm gonna introduce you to all the nice people in my community.
All
You're
right.
gonna hear all the terrible stories about them being Nazis, but I promise it's exaggerated just a little.
Nazis?
They're not Nazis. They're very nice people.
Okay.
Some of them are probably Nazis, but not most of them.
Trying to
Got
take a
excited.
break from Nazis for now. All right. Well, thank you, Prime. Thank you, everybody. I'll
Everyone,
see you
thank
next
you.
time.
Okay.
All right. Let me close that. Is Dooby a streamer? I don't know if he has a Twitch channel, but he comes on panels a lot, and he has like a gigantic Discord with like 60,000 people in it. I know. I'm sorry. I screwed up the schedule. It's not tomorrow. The AM Advice and Confessions with Mr. Girl, my call-in show, where we bare our souls, or other people bare their souls, and I drink their blood, is tomorrow at 8 Eastern. The AMA with Dooby's Discord is Monday at 9 Eastern. I have a streaming schedule somewhere. I think there's like a way to get it. I don't know. Fucking boomer. I know. You're confused because they learn their arguments as bullet points, and they can only engage with your questions by pulling answers from their dictionary, memorized arguments. Yeah, I know. I get what's happening. I'm more confused about why it's happening. I don't get why they do that. Yeah, I think these panels are really just a headache. A lot of people don't engage, and they just say shit for 10 minutes without saying anything. But I enjoy Mr. Girl's perspective nonetheless. I can't do it anymore. And I think I don't have to do it anymore. So the combination of those, yeah. If I were running the panel, that might be better. I know it'd be better for me. One problem I'm seeing in my YouTube recommended is the algorithm is suggesting a lot more conservative channels since watching you. I might want to upload more left-leaning chats because I think the algorithm thinks you are far right. I can see why it thinks that, but I'm not trying to... I'm going to talk to whoever I talk to, and we'll just see how it goes. I think also because I'm left-leaning, like... it's more like interesting for me to talk to right-leaning people because we disagree about more, and then when we do agree, it's like, wow, Mr. Girl and Richard Spencer are agreeing about something. It's like, it's shocking. But I don't agree with Richard Spencer's overall views. I find them abhorrent, as I said multiple times. I wasn't paying attention, but some people in DGG were saying that you looked frustrated even before the panel started. Yeah. I am. I'm frustrated from the last panel. I don't want to do this anymore. All your friends are on Stardust stream. You should say hello. Is that true? Maybe I'll pop in. Will they? Who's on there? Stardust, Cherry, Book. Wait, is that Booksmarts? Yeah, I might. Oh, and Rhizome, and Wicked. Yeah. No. No. Why do you think Lewis just kept dodging your point about him being upset with white people? I don't know. I'm like, if you blurt shit out, you gotta just own it. I don't see any way around it. Just be like black people are allowed to be upset with white people too. I don't think he's gonna catch any flack for that. Just be like, yeah, man, like, you know, 99% the people who give me shit, they're white. I was raised by parents who got a lot of shit from white people. I have a lot of stuff to work through. I hope we can work it through somewhat by talking about it with you or whoever, or what, you know, what, there's all kinds of shit you can say. I don't know why he just, I don't know. What frustrates you so much about panels? Okay. So people give me a lot of feedback about my communication style. I like emotionally need in a conversation with anyone about anything important for it to be like ping pong. Like, I need to hit the ball and we agree where the ball is, and then they have to hit it. And I'm not saying it has to be quick. I'm just saying do not swing over here and the ball I hit goes flying over here. So you're not actually responding to anything I'm saying. And then you act like you hit it back and I'm supposed to pretend, and then we're just pantomiming having a conversation when really we're both just talking, but we're not actually responding to anything the other person is saying. I hate that. I can't fucking stand it. And so that happens in panels, especially because I'm not able to call the person out because they're not hitting it to me. They hit it to someone else, and then that person will just pretend that there was a connection when there wasn't one. Or they take the ball and they start like rubbing like tar or like honey on it or something, or they smush it up, or they switch it out for another ball. They do something to cheat, and I can't call it out, and the moderators never call it out. And it just, I think that because I want such a high level of trust in like discourse or in like a debate, especially, I guess, when I'm like, do you think 50 Cent should see punishment from the government of some kind? What the person says, well, I don't think he should go to jail for life. And then someone else is like, well, what if nobody actually killed anybody from the song? Then it's like, that's not what I'm asking. And I don't want to spend 20 minutes clarifying it. Because if you can't answer it because you don't trust me, we're spending like 3 hours on superfluous, circuitous shit because you don't trust that I mean what I'm saying, or that I'm actually asking you the real question I'm asking you. Instead we could just get so much further if you just answer the fucking question. And then if you have a question for me, just ask the actual thing you're asking. You don't have to lead up to it with 20 questions of like probing. A lot of it I can't stand, and there's no way I can't influence it, and I can't stop it unless I'm the moderator. Jellos gave you the cold shoulder. You called him out, and he doesn't like that. Check your Twitter in the next few hours. Okay. Oh well. Some people said you're gonna burn out. Do you see that happening anytime soon? No. I would say before I started streaming, and while I had a job, I was probably working on my YouTube channel 6 to 8 hours a day. Something like that. So I'm used to fucking working a ton on content. I'm not going to burn out. And now I've quit my job, and this is my job. So basically, this is my day job. So no, I'm not going to burn out. I mean, I'm only streaming 3 or 4 times a week for 2 or 3 hours at a time. And the rest of the time I'm working on other stuff. So, well, there's also some like, I gotta like find guests and stuff. Like it's more than that. But no, I'm not going to burn out. You can trust me to pace myself and to set boundaries as I need to. I'm not going to crack. You do better with one-on-one convos? Yeah, no shit. Yeah. Yeah. If this is your job, give us emotes. Shaylin is working on animated emotes. We had, she made one. It was too small, so you couldn't tell what it was. But she's going to make another, and they will be coming soon. I think you should seriously take some of the advice you got from Destiny in terms of communicating. Otherwise, thanks for the stream. Fuck you. Otherwise, you're welcome. No, I don't want to communicate like Destiny. I don't want to be Destiny any more than Destiny wants to be me. Yeah, I have my own particular goals. What did you do before you quit? It was like a boring tech-related office thing. I hated when Bam wouldn't answer your yes or no hypothetical. It was very, very snaky. Yeah, I know. And then I look crazy because it's like the Vosh thing where I'm like, I look like I'm trying to corner the person, but I'm like, just say you don't want to answer it. Or answer it. Just don't tell me you answered it when you didn't. That's what I can't stand. Don't tell me you're doing one thing when you're really doing another. What about a weekly podcast with you and Richard Spencer for movie reviews? I don't think I'm going to do that. Unless he has a big fucking change of heart. If he denounces white supremacy and becomes, if he believes in democracy, and freedom and free speech, then yes. Then I would do a weekly movie review podcast with Richard Spencer. Why do you answer questions and stare at the camera like that? What am I supposed to stare at? My own face on a screen? The question I'm answering? I've read the question. Now I'm looking at you. Because I'm looking into your soul. That's why. Can I have your old job? I'm looking for work. No. No. Okay. I'm going to read these. Donations. Nope, I'm going to read this donation. I only have one. Okay. Oh. Yeah. Okay. E. Danan gave me $5 and said, I really appreciate what you do. Have some of my money. Thank you. I appreciate that. You come off as so unnecessarily confrontational sometimes, but that's kind of what I'm talking about. Is that you can say I'm paranoid, you can say I'm sensitive, however you want to look at it. I think people pull a lot of shit in these conversations, sneaky shit that I want to call out. I can't fucking stand it, so I'm not. And the only way I know how to do that is to have direct conflict. I think people are afraid of direct conflict. They're afraid of talking about their feelings. They're afraid of being emotional in this type of setting or these types of conversations. And I can't fucking stand it. It feels like I have my hands tied behind my back if I can't be emotional and expressive and talk about like what I think you're doing in the conversation. Can I talk to Lauren again? That's up to Lauren. My door is open. Your Discord is not safe for work. Is that on purpose or did it get flagged? That's on purpose. We're trying to keep our adults only rule that we had from the start. Do you respond to fan emails? Sometimes. I get a lot of them, so most of them I don't respond to. I would say if they're short and direct, yes. If somebody sends me money, yes, I respond to those. But a lot, I get I get a lot of emails with money and a lot of emails without money, and I definitely respond to the ones with money much faster and much more of the time. I get a lot of emails people asking me questions about their lives. I don't respond to those. I get emails for people asking for private conversations with me. Very often I don't respond to those. I get emails from minors sometimes. I don't respond to those. Yeah. Basically anything where it feels like the person is writing in to try to create a different relationship other than like creator audience, I don't respond to them. Yeah, I think that's probably covering your question. I hated when they wouldn't concede artists can sometimes make people do bad things. A succinct example of that is when 13 Reasons Why came out. Statistically, suicides raised by 30% in teenagers, and it was directly linked to that show. I haven't heard that, but yeah. I feel like we consume art because it changes us. So it's a weird idea that art can have such a profound impact on us and how we think, but not how we act. Augie RFC wants to talk to me. Okay, I'll talk to Augie. Do you know where I can find some Dooby nudes? Hook me up. I'm good with you saying what's on your mind. I just think you're a bit better at guessing other people's thoughts than you actually are. Yeah, maybe. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I am pretty good at guessing. I would say I guess people's feelings more than their thoughts. I don't know. I'm not saying it because I'm positive I'm right. I'm just like, this is what I am thinking. To me, part of direct communication is being open with the other person about what I think is occurring in the conversation. So if I think the other person is feeling something, then I just say that. And it's not to try to corner them, and it's not to try to prove to them that I know what they're thinking. It's just like, I don't want to continue a conversation where I have to pretend I don't have like my thoughts about what's happening. And people, I mean, come on, people constantly are telling me what they think I'm really thinking. They're constantly telling me that I'm like bad faith, or that I'm lying, or that I'm a pedophile, or that I'm arrogant. There's constant implications about that I'm projecting, that there's something happening in my mind that is not what I think it is. And I feel like you gotta just take that in stride. Like, if that's what you think, that's what you think. I think people should stop trying to control what other people think of them so much, and just like because you can't control what I think of you when I'm talking to you. So just like, don't try. And I don't try to do that either. I think that makes for a much more efficient and intimate exchange. Do you get jealous often? I wouldn't say often, but I get jealous. Yeah. 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 I get jealous. I like your hoodie. It is a good color. Thank you. Why did you get a tech job when you had a women's studies degree? Well, first of all, most people with women's studies degree, I think, probably end up in some kind of tech job. But second of all, and by tech, I mean office job. It was not super technical. It was kind of. It was in between. I have a psychology degree. I don't have a women's studies degree. I just took a women's studies class, and I got arrested in it. It's funny that someone who is empathetic to untouchable groups is also seen as disagreeable and dangerous. Yeah. That's kind of ironic. I guess they just assume you're in the group if you are empathizing with them. Why did I get arrested? I got arrested for comments in the class was historical and contemporary issues of black women, and we had a discussion about the Virginia Tech shooting, which led to me getting arrested. I made a video about it on my YouTube channel, and what's it called? I got arrested for being a potential school shooter, I think is what it's called. Did I have to release my one fitness client? No. I told her that I told you guys about her, and she's excited about being known as the one fitness client that I still have, and we're gonna move forward. Yeah. What's funny to me is I actually think your mind is closer to a normal person's than Destiny, but he's far enough from the norm to know to conform to some norms that you don't. I don't think. I think I willfully break social norms. I think that. Well, I mean, maybe I break them without knowing them, but my understanding is that I'm highly aware of social norms and I'm choosing to break them, or I'm just ignoring them. But then people like. I've had a lot of people think I'm autistic because they're like, you wouldn't be acting like this if you knew the rules. And I'm like, no, I know them. I'm just breaking them. Mr. Girl Returns is growing at this faster rate scary for you in any way? Yeah, because I'm not experienced. I can tell myself I'm smart and that I have good content and I'm good at talking to people and that I can make the best decision that I can, or try to make the best decision I can. I'm having to make a lot of decisions really fast, and I'm green. I'm real green. I don't know streaming. I don't even really understand social media. I don't know how the business part works. I don't understand the politics. I don't know what I'm doing. And and there's a lot of things about streaming I don't understand, that I don't know how to do, that I'm not used to. So, they say most plane crashes happen during takeoff. I'm worried that my skill does not match my size right now. It was way, oh man, there was something very comforting about having the skill of like a YouTuber with like several 100,000 subscribers, and like the dedication and the time and like the craft, and then only having like 2,000 subs was very comfortable. And now I am having to face also I have a lot of emotional problems with succeeding, particularly with the money part. The idea that I'm succeeding like as a content creator is very emotionally difficult for me to swallow, and brings up a lot of very bad feelings from my childhood that I am having to face, and having to do that and manage everything is a lot. I think I'm learning quickly, but I'm also making mistakes, and I am going to make more, and it's not a good time to be making them. And yeah, so yes, the answer is yes, it's scary. What are your thoughts about the American Psychological Association embracing trans ideology, specifically things that are not based on science? I think it's a combination, specifically not based on science. It's a combination, I think, of most psychologists, I think, are liberals or progressives. And I don't think progressives are very good at setting limits or saying no, as I've said before, specifically around this topic. So I think that's part of it. And then yeah, I mean, politicians, left-leaning politicians are going full steam ahead. But the APA shouldn't do that. The APA should be lagging behind far behind, I think. I think they should be conservative, not like conservative leaning, but just in a sense of being very careful before they start changing shit around. I think they're trying to be a little too modern. I think they should really make sure they know what they're doing before they start redefining things. So yeah, I wish they wouldn't do that, obviously. Do you think you would make a good moderator in panels? You seem to have a lot of opinions, and it would be difficult not to influence your panel's opinions while you're on it, it seems. LOL. I think I would be a good moderator. I think I'm not having like uncontrollable emotional outbursts. I think that, I don't know. Well, let's find out. To be honest, I think you've gone under the radar with your insane talent. It just took you a while to gain the subs your content deserves. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But talent in making content. So when I'm making a YouTube video, I'm like, I got this. I feel confident in my YouTube videos. But on stream and setting up streams and knowing which streams to go on and when to do it, how to do it, how to like even this conversation, like responding to comments, communicating with you guys, like I don't know what I'm doing. And like I seem to be doing okay, but I'm just not used to it. So like I just think there's like a skill base there that I just don't have yet. What would you like to speak to Jordan Peterson about? You mentioned you'd like to talk to him earlier. Really either side, psychology or politics. I think we'd have a pretty interesting conversation about psychology and a pretty I think either it would be more collaborative. I think with politics we'd probably argue with each other a lot. I think he gets into the victimhood thing, which I would definitely want to call him out on. I don't like these victim strong men. It's like Trump. I mean, it's like everybody's doing it now, but yeah, that bothers me. Do you think Richard S. didn't like American History X because of how true it was? I think he just is sickened by the moral, which is the exact reason I love it. And it basically just tells you that hate ruins your life and that you should fucking get over it, which I agree with. It does, well, I was gonna say it makes it look easy, but that's not true. I love that movie. You're doing well, thank you. Don't stress so much. Well, I don't think I can control how much I stress. I think I'm gonna go ahead and stress. If you could talk to Lacey Green, yeah, I tweeted at her. I guess I'll just keep doing that. I feel like eventually, as I get bigger, these people are going to start responding to me, hopefully. So, Lacey Green, I want to talk about sex and politics, all of it. I feel like we have a lot to talk about. Okay. I must depart. Oh, glad you were just bailing on the panel and decided to stick around for the homies. No, I am bailing on you too. Do another debate with Cherry? Yeah, that sounds good. I'll talk to Cherry at some point. I must go. Thank you for watching my stream. Maybe I'll raid Cherry if she's still streaming. She probably is. Yeah. Oh, yeah. All right. Have a good night, everyone. Be good to Cherry. Yeah, Advice and Confessions tomorrow at 8 Eastern. That will be the next stream. And I'm posting the last week's Advice and Confessions. If you miss it, I'm posting it on Mr. Girl Returns, the YouTube channel, imminently. You can watch the Richard debate on my YouTube channel called Mr. Girl Returns. yeah, so that's like where I put streaming stuff, and then Mr. Girl is the main channel. All right, kids, be good to Cherry.